Book of the 12. The word of YHWH that came to Hosea, the son of Beeri, in the days of Uzziah, Jotham, Ahaz, and Hezekiah, kings of Judah, and in the days of Jeroboam the son of Joash, king of Israel. The beginning of the word of YHWH by Hosea. And YHWH said to Hosea, Go, take to yourself a woman of prostitution and children of prostitution, because the land has committed great prostitution in departing from YHWH. So he went and took Gomer the daughter of Diblaim, who conceived and gendered him a son. Then YHWH said to him, Call his name Jezreel, for still a little while and I will avenge the blood of Jezreel on the house of Jehu, and will cause to cease the kingdom of the house of Israel. And it will come to pass at that day that I will break the bow of Israel in the valley of Jezreel. Then she conceived again and gendered a daughter. And Elohim said to him, Call her name Laruhamah, because I will no more have mercy on the house of Israel, but I will carry them away. But I will have mercy on the house of Judah and will save them by YHWH their Elohim, and will not save them by bow, nor by sword, nor by battle, by horses, nor by horsemen. Now when she had weaned Laruhamah, she conceived and gendered a son. Then Elohim declared, Call his name Lomi, because you are not my people, and I will not be your Elohim. Still the number of the children of Israel will be as the sand of the sea that cannot be measured nor numbered. And it will come to pass that in the place where it was said to them, You are not my people, there it will be said to them, You are the children of the living Elohim. Then will the children of Judah and the children of Israel be gathered together, and appoint themselves one chief, and they will come up out of the land, because great will be the day of Jezreel. Say to your brothers, Ami, and to your sisters, Ruhamah. Plead with your mother, plead, because she is not my woman, neither am I her husband, let her put away her prostitution out of her sight and her adulteries from between her breasts, unless I strip her naked and set her as in the day that she was born, and make her as a wilderness, and set her like a land of drought, and kill her with thirst. And I will not have mercy on her children, because they are the children of prostitution. Because their mother has played the prostitute, she that became pregnant has withered, because she said, I will go after my lovers, that give me my bread and my water, my wool and my flax, my oil and my drink. Therefore observe, I will hedge up your way with thorns, and make a wall so that she will not find her paths. Then she will follow after her lovers, but she will not overtake them, and she will seek them, but will not find them. Then will she say, I will go and return to my first husband, for then was it better with me than now. Because she did not know that I gave her grain, wine, oil and increased her silver and gold that they prepared for Baal. Therefore I will return, and remove my grain in its time, and my wine in its season, and will recover my wool and flax given to cover her nakedness. And now I will uncover her immodesty in the sight of her lovers, and none will deliver her out of my hand. I will also cause all her rejoicing to cease, her festival days, her new moons and her Sabbaths, and all her appointed place festivals. And I will destroy her vines and her fig trees where she has said, These are my rewards that my lovers have given me, and I will make them a forest and the animals of the field will eat them. And I have charged on her the days of the Baalim, to whom she makes perfume and puts on her ring and her ornament. And goes after her lovers but me she forgot, an affirmation of YHWH. Therefore, lo, I am enticing her and have caused her to go to the wilderness, and I have spoken to her heart, and I will give her vineyards from there, and the valley of Achor for a door of hope, and she will sing there, as in the days of her youth and as in the day when she came up out of the land of Egypt. Then it will happen in that day, declares YHWH, that you will call me husband, and will call me no more Baali, pagan deity. Because I will remove the names of Baalim out of her mouth, and they will no more be remembered by their name. And in that day I will cut out a covenant for them with the animals of the field, and with the flying creatures of the sky, and with the creeping things of the ground. And I will break the bow and the sword and the battle out of the earth, and will make them to lie down in security. And I will engage you to me for the ages, yes, I will engage you to me in righteousness and in judgment, and in loving kindness and mercies. I will even engage you to me in faithfulness, and you will know YHWH. And it has come to pass in that day, I answer, an affirmation of YHWH, I will answer from the cosmos, and they answer from the earth. Then the earth will respond with grain, wine, and oil, and they will testify Jezreel, Elohim sows. And I will sow her to me in the earth, and I will have mercy on her that had not obtained mercy, and I will say to them that were not my people, You are my people, and they will say, You are my Elohim. Then YHWH said to me, Go again and love a woman that is loved by her husband but is still an adulteress, even as YHWH loves the children of Israel, though they turn to other Elohim and love raisin cakes. So I bought her for myself for 15 pieces of silver, and for an homer of barley and half homer, 10 bushels, of barley, and I said to her, You will live with me for many days, you will not play the prostitute, and you will not be for another man, so I will also be for you. Because the children of Israel will live many days without a king, and without a chief, and without a sacrifice, and without a pillar, and without an ephod, priestly garment, in teraphim, Urim Thummim. Afterward the children of Israel will return, and seek Yhwh their Elohim, and David their king, and will fear Yhwh and his goodness in the latter days. Hear the word of Yhwh, you children of Israel, because Yhwh has a controversy with the inhabitants of the land, because there is no truth, nor goodness, nor knowledge of Elohim in the land. By swearing, lying, killing, stealing, and committing adultery, they break out, and blood follows bloodshed. Therefore the land will mourn, and everyone that lives in it will languish, with the animals of the field, and with the flying creatures of the sky, yes, the fish of the sea also will be removed. Still let no man contend, nor correct another, because your people are as they that contend with the priest. Therefore you will stagger in the day, and the spokesman also will stagger with you in the night, and I will destroy your mother. My people are destroyed for lack of knowledge, because you have rejected knowledge, I will also reject you, that you will be no minister to me, seeing you have forgotten the law of your Elohim, I will also forget your children. As they were increased, so they sinned against me, therefore I will change their glory into shame. They eat up the sin of my people, and they set their heart on their depravity. And there will be, like people, like minister, and I will punish them for their ways, and reward them their doings. Because they will eat and not have enough, they will commit prostitution and will not increase, because they have stopped taking heed to Yhwh. Prostitution and wine, and new wine remove the heart. My people at its staff inquire, and its rod declares to it, because a spirit of prostitution has caused to err, and they go a-whoring from under their Elohim. They sacrifice on the tops of the mountains and burn incense on the hills, under oaks and poplars and elms, because the shade is good, therefore your daughters will commit prostitution, and your spouses will commit adultery. I will not punish your daughters when they are guilty of prostitution, nor your spouses when they commit adultery, for they themselves are separated with prostitutes, and they sacrifice with whores, therefore the people that do not understand will fall. Though a prostitute you are, O Israel, let not Judah become guilty, and come not to Gilgal, nor go up to Bethaven, nor Ajur, Yhwh exists. Because Israel slides back as a backsliding heifer, now Yhwh will feed them as a lamb in a large place. Ephraim is joined to idols, leave him alone. Sours their drink, they have gone diligently a-whoring, her protectors have loved shame thoroughly. The wind has bound her up in her wings, and they will be ashamed because of their sacrifices. Now hear this, O priests, and listen, you house of Israel, and give ear, O house of the king, for judgment is toward you, because you have been a snare on Mizpah, and a net spread upon Tabor. And the revolters are profound to make slaughter, though I have been a corrector of them all. I know Ephraim, and Israel is not hidden from me, because now, O Ephraim, you commit prostitution and Israel becomes unclean. They will not frame their doings to turn to their Elohim, because the spirit of whoring is in the midst of them and they have not known Yhwh. And the pride of Israel does testify to his face, therefore will Israel and Ephraim fall in their depravity, Judah also will fall with them. They will go with their flocks and with their herds to seek Yhwh, but they will not find him, he has withdrawn himself from them. They have dealt treacherously against Yhwh, because they have engendered loathsome children, now will the new moon devour them, with their allotted possessions. Blow you the ram's horn in Gibeah, and the trumpet in Ramah, cry aloud at Bethaven, after you, O Benjamin. Ephraim will be desolate in the day of correction, among the tribes of Israel I have made known what will certainly be. The princes of Judah were like them that remove the boundary, so I will pour out my anger upon them like water. Ephraim is oppressed and broken in judgment, because he willingly walked after the ordinance. Therefore I will be to Ephraim as a moth, and to the house of Judah as rottenness. When Ephraim saw his sickness, and Judah saw his wound, then went Ephraim to the Assyrian, and sent to King Jareb, still he could not heal you nor cure you of your wound. Because I will be to Ephraim as a lion, and as a young lion to the house of Judah, I, even I, will tear and go away, I will take away, and none will rescue him. I will go and return to my standing place until they acknowledge their offense and seek my face, in their straits they will seek me early. Come, and let us return to Yhwh, because he has torn but he will heal us, he has struck but he will govern us. After 2 days will he restore us, in the 3rd day he will raise us up, and we will live in his sight. Then will we know, if we follow on to know Yhwh, his going out is prepared as the morning, and he will come to us as the rain, as the latter and former rain to the earth. O Ephraim, what will I do to you? O Judah, what will I do to you? For your goodness is as a morning cloud, and as the early dew it goes away. Therefore I have quarried them by the prophets, I have killed them by the words of my mouth, and your judgments are as the light that goes forth. Because I desired mercy, and not sacrifice, and the knowledge of alone more than whole burnt offerings. But they like men have transgressed the covenant pledge, there they have dealt treacherously against me. Gilead is a city of them that work wickedness, and is polluted with blood. And as troops of robbers wait for a man, so the company of ministers murder in the way by consent, because they commit evil plans. I have seen a horrible thing in the house of Israel, there is the prostitution of Ephraim, Israel has become unclean. Also, O Judah, he has set a harvest for you, when I return the captivity of my people. When I would have hailed Israel, then the depravity of Ephraim was discovered, and the wickedness of Samaria, because they practice deception, and the thief comes in and the troop of robbers plunder without. And they consider not in their hearts that I remember all their wickedness, now their own practices have beset them all around, they are before my face. They make the king glad with their badness, and the princes with their lies. They are all adulterers, as an oven heated by the baker, who ceases from stirring up after he has kneaded the dough, until it is leavened. In the day of our king the princes have made him sick with bottles of wine, he stretched out his hand with arrogant talk. Because they have made ready their heart like an oven, while they lie in wait, their baker sleeps all the night, in the morning it burns as a flaming fire. They are all hot as an oven, and have devoured their judges, all their kings are fallen, there is none among them that calls to me. Ephraim, he has mixed himself among the people, Ephraim is a cake not turned. Foreigners have devoured his strength, and he knows it not, yes, gray hairs are here and there upon him, yet he is not aware. And the pride of Israel testifies to his face, and they do not return to YHWH there alone nor seek him for all this. Ephraim also is like a silly dove without heart, they call to Egypt, they go to Assyria. When they will go I will spread my net upon them, I will bring them down as the birds of the sky, I will correct them as their congregation has heard. Woe to them! Because they have fled from me, destruction with them. Because they have rebelled against me, though I have ransomed them, still they have spoken lies against me. And they have not cried to me with their heart, when they howled upon their beds, they assemble themselves for grain and wine, and they rebel against me. Though I have bound and strengthened their arms, still do they imagine mischief against me. They return, but not to the Most High, they are like a deceitful bow, their princes will fall by the sword for the rage of their tongue, this will be their derision in the land of Egypt. Set the trumpet to your mouth. He will come as an eagle against the temple of YHWH, because they have transgressed my covenant and revolted against my law. Israel will cry to me, my Elohim, we know you. Israel has cast off the thing that is good, the enemy will pursue him. They have set up kings, but not by me, they have made princes and I knew it not, of their silver and gold they have fashioned themselves idols, that they may be cut off. Your calf, O Samaria, has cast you off, my anger is kindled against them, how long will they be incapable to attain innocency? Because from Israel was it also, the workman fashioned it, therefore it is not Elohim, but the calf of Samaria will be broken in pieces. Because they have sown the wind and they will reap the whirlwind, it has no stalk, the bud will yield no meal, if so be it yields, the foreigners will swallow it up. Israel is swallowed up, now will they be among the Gentiles as a vessel where there is no delight. Because they are gone up to Assyria, a wild donkey alone by himself, Ephraim has hired lovers. Yes, though they have hired among the nations, now will I gather them and they will sorrow a little for the burden of the king of princes. Because Ephraim has fashioned many altars to sin, altars will be to him for sin. I have written to him the great things of my law, but they were counted as an alien thing. They sacrifice flesh for the sacrifices of my offerings and eat it, but YHWH does not accept them. Now he will remember their depravity and visit their sins, they will return to Egypt. Because Israel has forgotten his Maker, and builds sanctuaries, and Judah has increased the fenced cities, but I will send a fire upon his cities, and it will devour the fortresses. Rejoice not, O Israel, for joy is other people, because you have gone a whoring from your alone, you have loved a reward upon every threshing floor. The threshing floor and the winepress will not feed them, and the new wine will fail in her. They will not reside in YHWH's land, but Ephraim will return to Egypt and they will eat unclean things in Assyria. They will not offer wine offerings to YHWH, neither will they be pleasing to him, their sacrifices will be to them as the bread of mourners. All that eat will be polluted, because their bread for their lives will not come into the temple of YHWH. What will you do in the time of the appointed place, and in the day of the festival gathering of YHWH? For lo, they are gone because of destruction, Egypt will gather them up, Memphis will bury them, the pleasant places for their silver, nettles will possess them, thorns will be in their tents. The days of visitation are come, the days of retribution are come, Israel will know it, the minister is a fool, the spiritual man is mad, for the multitude of your depravities and the great enmity. The watchman of Ephraim was with my Elohim, but the minister is a snare of a fowler in all his ways, and hatred in the temple of his Elohim. They have deeply corrupted themselves, as in the days of Gibeah, therefore he will remember their depravity, he will visit their sins. I found Israel like grapes in the wilderness, I saw your ancestors as the first fruits in the fig tree at her beginning, but they went to Baal-peor and separated themselves to that shame, and their detestable things were according as they loved. As for Ephraim, their glory will fly away like a bird, from the birth and from the womb and from the conception. Though they bring up their children, still I will bereave them, that there will not be a man left, yes, woe also to them when I leave from them. Ephraim, as I saw Tyrus, is planted in a pleasant place, but Ephraim will bring forth his children to the murderer. Give them, O YHWH, what will you give? Give them a miscarrying womb and dry breasts. All their badness is in Gilgal, for there I hated them because of the badness from their practices, I will drive them out of my temple, I will love them no more, all their leaders are revolters. Ephraim is stricken, their root is dried up, and they will bear no fruit, yes, though they bring forth, still I will kill even the beloved fruit of their womb. My Elohim will cast them away, because they did not listen to him, and they will be wanderers among the nations. Israel is an empty vine, he sprouts fruit to himself, according to the increase of his fruit he has increased the altars, according to the goodness of his land they have fashioned pleasing images. Their heart is divided, now will they be found faulty, he will break down their altars, he will plunder their images. Because now they will say, we have no king because we feared not YHWH, and what could a king do to us? They have spoken words, adjuring falsely and cutting out a covenant, then judgment springs up as hemlock in the furrows of the field. The inhabitants of Samaria will fear because of the calves of Bethaven, because the people will mourn over it, and the ministers that rejoiced on it for its glory, because it has departed from it. It will also be carried to Assyria for a present to King Jareb. Ephraim will receive shame and Israel will be ashamed of his own counsel. As for Samaria, her king is cut off as the wrath upon the water. The worship places also of Avon, the sin of Israel will be destroyed, the thorn and the thistle will come up on their altars, and they will say to the mountains, cover us, and to the hills, fall on us. O Israel, you have sinned from the days of Gibeah, there they stood, the battle in Gibeah against the children of injustice did not overtake them. It is in my desire that I should correct them, and the people will be gathered against them, when they will bind themselves in their two habitations. And Ephraim is as an heifer that is taught, and loves to tread out the corn, but I passed over upon her fair neck, I will make Ephraim to ride, Judah will plow, and Jacob will break his clods. Sow to yourselves in righteousness, reap in mercy, break up your fallow ground, because it is time to inquire of YHWH, until he come and rains righteousness on you. You have plowed wickedness, you have reaped injustice, you have eaten the fruit of lies, because you did trust in your own ways, in the multitude of your mighty men. Therefore will an uproar arise among your people, and all your fortresses will be plundered, as Shalman spoiled Betharbel in the day of battle, the mother was dashed in pieces upon her children. So will Bethel do to you because of your great wickedness, in a morning will the king of Israel be utterly cut off. When Israel was a child, then I loved him and called my son out of Egypt. As they called them, so they went from them, they sacrificed to Baalim and burnt incense to graven images. I taught Ephraim also to go, taking them by their arms, but they knew not that I healed them. I drew them with cords of a man, with bands of love, and I was to them as they that take off the yoke on their jaws, and I spread out meat for them. He will not return into the land of Egypt, but the Assyrian will be his king because they refuse to return. And the sword will remain on his cities, and will consume his branches, and devour them, because of their own counsels. And my people are bent to backsliding from me, though they called them to the Most High, none at all would exalt him. How will I give you up, Ephraim? How will I deliver you, Israel? How will I make you as Admah? How will I set you as Zeboim? My heart is turned within me, my compassion is kindled together. I will not execute the fierceness of my anger, I will not return to destroy Ephraim, because I am Elohim and not man, the Holy One in the center of you, and I will not enter into the city. They will walk after YHWH, he will roar like a lion, when he will roar, then the children will tremble from the west. They will tremble as a bird out of Egypt, and as a dove out of the land of Assyria, and I will place them in their houses, declares YHWH. Ephraim encircles me around with lies, and the house of Israel with deceit, but Judah still rules with Elohim, and is faithful with the Holy One. Ephraim feeds on wind and follows after the east wind, he daily increases lies and desolation, and they cut out a treaty with the Assyrians, and oil is carried into Egypt. YHWH has also a controversy with Judah and will punish Jacob according to his ways, according to his practices will he repay him. He took his brother by the heel in the womb, and by his strength he had power with Elohim. Yes, he prevailed over the angel and overcame, he wept, and made supplication to him. He found him in Bethel and there he spoke with us, even YHWH Elohim of hosts, YHWH is his memorial. Therefore turn you to your Elohim, observe mercy and judgment, and wait on Elohim continually. He is a merchant, the balances of deceit are in his hand, he loves to oppress. Then Ephraim said, I have become rich, I have found out substance, in all my labors they will find no depravity in me or sin. And I that am YHWH Elohim that from the land of Egypt will still make you to live in tents, as in the days of the appointed place. I have also spoken by the prophets, and I have increased visions, and used comparisons by the hand of the prophets. Is there trouble in Gilead? Certainly they are vanity, they sacrifice oxen in Gilgal, yea, their altars are as heaps in the furrows of the fields. And Jacob fled into the country of Syria, and Israel served for a woman, and for a woman he kept sheep. And by a prophet YHWH brought Israel out of Egypt, and by a prophet was he preserved. Ephraim provoked him to anger most bitterly, therefore he will leave his blood upon him, and his reproach will his YHWH return to him. When Ephraim spoke trembling, he exalted himself in Israel, but when he offended in Baal, he died. And now they sin more and more, and have made themselves cast images from their silver, and idols according to their own understanding, all of it the work of the craftsman. They say of them, let the men that sacrifice kiss the calves. Therefore they will be as the morning cloud, and as the early dew that passes away, as the chaff that is driven with the whirlwind out of the threshing floor, and as the smoke out of the chimney. Still I am YHWH Elohim, from the land of Egypt, and you will know no Elohim but me, because there is no Savior beside me. I did know you in the wilderness, in the land of great drought. According to their pasture, so were they filled and their heart was exalted, therefore they have forgotten me. Therefore I will be to them as a lion, as a leopard by the way will I observe them, I will meet them as a bear that is bereaved of her cubs, and will tear the call of their heart, and there I will devour them like a lion, the wild animal will tear them. O Israel, you have destroyed yourself, but in me is your help. I will be your king, where is any other that may save you in all your cities? And your judges of whom you said, give me a king and princes? I gave you a king in my anger, and took him away in my wrath. The depravity of Ephraim is bound up, his sin is hidden. The pain of a woman in labor will come upon him, he is an unwise son, because he should not stay long in the place of breach, from the womb of children. I will ransom them from the power of Sheol, I will ransom them from dying, O death, I will be your plagues, O Sheol, I will be your destruction, repentance will be hidden from my eyes. Though he is fruitful among his kinship, an east wind will come, the wind of YHWH will come up from the uninhabited land, and his spring will become dry, and his fountain will be dried up, he will plunder the treasure of all precious vessels. Samaria will become desolate, because she has rebelled against her Elohim, they will fall by the sword, their infants will be dashed in pieces, and their pregnant women will be ripped up. O Israel, return to YHWH Elohim, because you have fallen by your depravity. Take with you words and turn to YHWH, say to him, remove all depravity and receive us graciously, so will we offer the fruit of our lips. Ashur will not deliver us, we will not ride upon horses, neither will we say any more to the work of our hands, you are our Elohim, because in you, the fatherless find mercy. I will heal their backsliding, I will love them freely, for my nostrils are turned away from him. I will be as the dew to Israel, he will grow as the lily, and cast forth his roots as Lebanon. His branches will spread and his beauty will be as the olive tree, and his aroma as Lebanon. They that live under his shadow will return, they will be restored as the grain, and grow as the vine, the memorial will be as the wine of Lebanon. Ephraim will say, what have I to do any more with idols? I have heard him and observed him, I am like a fresh cypress tree, from me is your fruit found. Who is wise, and he will understand these things? Discerning and he will know them? Because the ways of YHWH are correct, and the righteous will walk in them, but the rebels will stagger. The word of YHWH that came to Joel the son of Pethuel. Hear this, you old men, and give ear all you inhabitants of the land. Has this been in your days, or even in the days of your ancestors? Tell your children of it, and let your children tell their children, and their children another generation. What the palmerworm has left has the locust eaten, and what the locust has left has the cankerworm eaten, and what the cankerworm has left has the caterpillar eaten. Awake, you drunkards, and weep, and howl, all you drinkers of wine, because of the new wine, because it is cut off from your mouth. Because a nation has come up upon my land, strong and without number, whose teeth are the teeth of a lion, and he has the cheek teeth of a great lion. He has laid my vine waste, and barked my fig tree, he has made it clean bare and cast it away, its branches are barked to the white. Lament like a virgin girded with sackcloth for the husband of her youth. The meat offering and the drink offering are cut off from the temple of YHWH, the priests, YHWH's ministers, mourn. The field is wasted, the land mourns, because the corn is wasted, the new wine is dried up, the oil is exhausted. Be ashamed, O you farmers, howl, O you vine dressers, for the wheat and for the barley, because the harvest of the field is perished. The vine is dried up, and the fig tree droops, the pomegranate tree, the palm tree also and the apple tree, even all the trees of the field are withered, because joy is withered away from the sons of men. Gird yourselves and lament, you priests, howl, you ministers of the altar, come, lie all night in sackcloth, you ministers of my Elohim, because the meat offering and the drink offering is withheld from the temple of your Elohim. Consecrate yourselves a fast, call a solemn assembly, gather the elders and all the inhabitants of the land into the temple of YHWH Elohim, and cry to YHWH, alas for the day. For the day of YHWH is at hand, and as a destruction from the Almighty will it come. Is not the meat cut off before our eyes, yes, joy and gladness from the temple of our Elohim? The seed is rotten under their clods, the garners are laid desolate, the barns are broken down, for the corn is withered. How do the animals groan? The herds of cattle are perplexed, because they have no pasture, yes, the flocks of sheep are made desolate. O YHWH, to you will I cry, because the supernatural fire has devoured the pastures of the wilderness, and the flame has burnt all the trees of the field. The animals of the field cry also to you, because the rivers of waters are dried up and the fire has devoured the pastures of the wilderness. Blow you the ram's horn in Zion, and sound an alarm in my holy mountain, let all the inhabitants of the land tremble, because the day of YHWH comes, for it is close at hand, a day of darkness and of gloominess, a day of the cloud mass and of thick darkness, as the dawn spread upon the mountains. A great people and a strong, there has not ever been the like, neither will be any more after it, even to the years of many generations. A supernatural fire devours before them, and behind them a flame burns, the land is as the garden of Eden before them, and behind them a desolate wilderness, yes, and nothing will escape them. The appearance of them is as the appearance of horses, and as horsemen, so shall they run. Like the noise of chariots on the tops of mountains will they leap, like the noise of a flame of fire that devours the stubble, as a strong people set in battle array. Before their face the people will be much pained, all faces will gather blackness. They will run like mighty men, they will climb the wall like men of war, and they will march everyone on his ways, and they will not break their ranks, neither will one thrust another, they will walk everyone in its path, and when they fall upon the sword, they will not be wounded. They will run to and fro in the city, they will run upon the wall, they will climb up upon the houses, they will enter in at the windows like a thief. The earth will quake before them, the skies will tremble, the sun and the moon will be dark, and the stars will withdraw their shining. Then YHWH will utter his voice before his army, because his camp is very great, for he is strong that executes his word, because the day of YHWH is great and very terrible, and who can endure it? Therefore now also declares YHWH, turn you even to me with all your heart, and with fasting and with weeping, and with mourning, and tear your heart and not your garments, and turn to YHWH alone, because he is gracious and merciful, slow to anger and of great kindness, and regrets himself of the bad. Who knows if he will return and feel sorry, and leave a blessing behind him, even a meat offering and a drink offering to YHWH your Elohim? Blow the ram's horn in Zion, consecrate a fast, and call a solemn assembly, gather the people, consecrate the congregation, assemble the elders, gather the children and those that suckle the breasts, let the bridegroom leave his chamber, and the bride out of her closet. Let the priests, the ministers of YHWH weep between the porch and the altar, and let them say, spare your people, O YHWH, and give not your heritage to reproach so that the heathen should rule over them. Wherefore should they say among the people, where is their Elohim? Then will YHWH be jealous for his land and pity his people. Yes, YHWH will answer and say to his people, look, I will send you corn, wine, and oil, and you will be satisfied, and I will no more make you a reproach among the heathen. But I will remove far off from you the northern army, and will drive him into a land barren and desolate, with his face toward the east sea, and his rear part toward the western sea, and his stench will come up, and his foul odor will come up, because he has done great things. Fear not, O land, be glad and rejoice, because YHWH will do great things. Be not afraid, you animals of the field, for the pastures of the wilderness will sprout, for the tree bears her fruit, the fig tree and the vine will yield their strength. Be glad then, you children of Zion, and rejoice in YHWH alone, because he has given you the former rain moderately, and he will cause to come down for you the rain, the former rain, and the latter rain in the first month. And the threshing floors will be full of wheat, and the wine vats will overflow with wine and oil. And I will restore to you the years that the locust has eaten, the cankerworm and the caterpillar, and the palmerworm, my great army that I sent among you. And you will eat in plenty and be satisfied, and praise the name of YHWH alone, that has dealt wondrously with you, and my people will never be ashamed. And you will know that I am in the center of Israel, and that I am YHWH your Elohim, and none else, and my people will never be ashamed. Then it will come to pass afterward, that I will pour out my spirit upon all flesh, and your sons and your daughters will prophesy, your old men will dream dreams, your young men will see visions, and also on the servants and the handmaids in those days I will pour out my spirit. And I will show portents in the cosmos and in the earth, blood and fire and pillars of smoke. The sun will be turned into darkness, and the moon into blood, before the great and the terrible day of YHWH comes. And it will come to pass, that whoever will call on the name of YHWH will be delivered, because in Mount Zion and in Jerusalem will be deliverance, as YHWH has said, and in the remnant whom YHWH will call. Now observe, in those days and in that time, when I will regather the captives of Judah and Jerusalem, I will also gather all nations, and will bring them down into the valley of Jehoshaphat, and will plead with them there for my people and for my heritage Israel, whom they have scattered among the nations, and parted my land. And they have cast lots for my people, and have given a boy for a whore, and sold a girl for wine, that they might drink. Yes, and what have you to do with me, O Tyre, and Zidon, and all of the coasts of Palestine? Will you render me a repayment? And if you repay me swiftly and speedily I will return your repayment on your own head, because you have taken my silver and my gold, and have carried into your temples my goodly precious things. The children also of Judah and the children of Jerusalem have you sold to the Grecians, that you might remove them far from their border. Look, I will raise them out of the place where you have sold them, and will return your repayment upon your own head, and I will sell your sons and your daughters into the hand of the children of Judah, and they will sell them to the Sabaeans, to a people far off, because YHWH has spoken it. Proclaim this among the Gentiles, prepare for war, wake up the mighty men, let all the men of war draw near, let them come up, beat your plowshares into swords, and your pruning hooks into spears, let the weak say, I am strong. Assemble yourselves, and come all you heathen, and gather yourselves together all around and cause your mighty ones to come down, O YHWH. Let the heathen be awakened and come up to the valley of Jehoshaphat, because there I will sit to judge all the heathen. Put in the sickle, for the harvest is ripe, come, that you down, for the press is full, the wine vats overflow, for their wickedness is great. Multitudes, multitudes in the valley of decision, because the day of YHWH is near in the valley of decision. The sun and the moon will be darkened, and the stars will withdraw their shining. YHWH will also roar out of Zion, and utter his voice from Jerusalem, and the cosmos and the earth will shake, but YHWH will be the hope of his people, and the strength of the children of Israel. So will you know that I am YHWH your Elohim living in Zion, my holy mountain. Then will Jerusalem be sacred, and there will no foreigners pass through her any more. And it will come to pass in that day, that the mountains will drop down new wine, and the hills will flow with milk. And all the rivers of Judah will flow with waters, and a fountain will spring forth from the sanctuary of YHWH, and will water the valley of Shittim. Egypt will be a desolation and Edom will be a desolate wilderness, because of the violence against the children of Judah, because they have shed innocent blood in their land. But Judah will live for the ages, and Jerusalem from generation to generation. Because I will cleanse their blood that I have not cleansed, for YHWH lives in Zion. The words of Amos, who was among the herdsmen of Tekoa, that he saw concerning Israel in the days of Uzziah king of Judah, and in the days of Jeroboam the son of Joash king of Israel, 2 years before the earthquake. And he said, YHWH will roar from Zion and utter his voice from Jerusalem, and the habitations of the shepherds will mourn and the top of Carmel will wither. This is what YHWH declares, for 3 transgressions of Damascus, and for 4, I will not turn away the punishment, because they have threshed Gilead with threshing instruments of iron, but I will send a fire into the house of Hazael that will devour the palaces of Benhadad. I will break also the bar of Damascus, and cut off the inhabitant from the plain of Avon, and him that holds the scepter from Beth Eden, and the people of Syria will go into captivity to Kir, declares YHWH. This is what YHWH declares, for 3 transgressions of Gaza, and for 4, I will not turn away the punishment, because they carried away captive the whole captivity, to deliver them up to Edom, but I will send a fire on the wall of Gaza that will devour the palaces, and I will cut off the inhabitant from Ashdod, and him that holds the scepter from Ashkelon, and I will turn my hand against Ekron, and the remnant of the Philistines will perish, declares Adonai YHWH. This is what YHWH declares, for 3 transgressions of Tyrus, and for 4, I will not turn away the punishment, because they delivered up the whole captivity to Edom, and remembered not the brotherly treaty, but I will send a fire on the wall of Tyrus that will devour the palaces. This is what YHWH declares, for 3 transgressions of Edom, and for 4, I will not turn away the punishment, because he did pursue his brother with the sword, and did cast off all pity, and his anger did tear perpetually, and he kept his anger at all times, but I will send a fire on Teman that will devour the palaces of Bozrah. This is what YHWH declares, for 3 transgressions of the children of Ammon, and for 4, I will not turn away the punishment, because they have ripped up the women with infant from Gilead, that they might enlarge their border, but I will kindle a fire in the wall of Rabbah, and it will devour the palaces, with shouting in the day of battle, with a storm in the day of the whirlwind, and their king will go into captivity, he and his rulers together, declares YHWH. This is what YHWH declares, for 3 transgressions of Moab, and for 4, I will not turn away the punishment, because he burnt the bones of the king of Edom into lime, but I will send a fire on Moab, and it will devour the palaces of Kerioth, and Moab will die with tumult, with shouting, and with the sound of the ram's horn. And I will cut off the judge from its center, and will kill all the rulers with him, declares YHWH. This is what YHWH declares, for 3 transgressions of Judah, and for 4, I will not turn away the punishment, because they have despised the law of YHWH, and have not observed his commandments, and their lies caused them to err, after which their fathers have walked, but I will send a fire on Judah, and it will devour the palaces of Jerusalem. This is what YHWH declares, for 3 transgressions of Israel, and for 4, I will not turn away the punishment, because they sold the righteous for silver and the poor for a pair of shoes, who are panting for the dust of the earth on the head of the poor. And the way of the humble they turn aside, and a man and his dad go to the same girl, so as to desecrate my holy name. And they lay themselves down upon clothes laid to pledge by every altar, and they drink the wine of the condemned in the temple of their Elohim. Still I destroyed the Amorite before them, whose height was like the height of the cedars, and he was strong as the oaks. Still I destroyed his fruit from above, and his roots from beneath. Also I brought you up from the land of Egypt, and led you 40 years through the uninhabited land, to possess the land of the Amorite. And I raised up of your sons for prophets, and of your young men for Nazirites. Is it not even so, O you children of Israel? Declares YHWH. But you gave the Nazirites wine to drink, and commanded the prophets, saying, Prophesy not. Look, I am pressed under you, as a cart is pressed that is full of sheaves. Therefore, the flight will perish from the swift, and the strong will not strengthen his force, neither will the mighty deliver himself, neither will he stand that handles the bow, and he that is swift of foot will not deliver himself, neither will he that rides the horse deliver himself. And he that is courageous among the mighty will flee away naked in that day, declares YHWH. Hear this word that YHWH has spoken against you, O children of Israel, against the whole family that I brought up from the land of Egypt, saying, You only I have known of all the families of the earth, therefore I will punish you for all your depravities. Can 2 walk together except they be agreed? Will a lion roar in the forest, when he has no prey? Will a young lion cry out of his den if he has taken nothing? Can a bird fall in a snare on the earth where no snare is for him? Will one take up a snare from the earth and have taken nothing at all? Will a ram's horn be blown in the city and the people not be afraid? Will there be bad in a city and YHWH has not done it? Certainly Adonai YHWH will do nothing, but he reveals his secret to his slaves the prophets. The lion has roared, who will not fear? Adonai YHWH has spoken, who can but prophesy? Sound to palaces in Ashdod, and to palaces in the land of Egypt, and say, Be you gathered on the mountains of Samaria, and see many troubles within her, and oppressed ones in her midst. Because they know not to do right, declares YHWH, who store up violence and robbery in their palaces. Therefore declares Adonai YHWH, an adversary there will be even around the land, and he will bring down your strength from you, and your palaces will be plundered. This is what YHWH declares, as the shepherd takes out of the mouth of the lion 2 legs, or a piece of an ear, so will the children of Israel be taken out that live in Samaria in the corner of a bed, and in Damascus in a couch. Hear you, and testify in the house of Jacob, declares Adonai YHWH, the Elohim of hosts. That, in the day that I will visit the transgressions of Israel upon him, I will also visit the altars of Bethel, and the horns of the altar will be cut off and fall to the ground. And I will strike the winter house with the summer house, and the houses of ivory will perish, and the great houses will have an end, declares YHWH. Hear this word, you heifer of Bashan, that are in the mountain of Samaria, that oppress the poor, which crush the needy, which say to their masters, Bring, and let us drink. Adonai YHWH has adjured by his holiness, that lo, the days will come upon you that he will take you away with hooks, and your posterity with fishhooks. And you will go out at the breaches, every cow at what is before her, and you will cast them into the palace, declares YHWH. Enter Bethel, and transgress, at Gilgal multiply transgression and bring in every morning your sacrifices, every third year your tithes. And perfume with leaven a thank offering, and proclaim willing gifts, sound you. For so you have loved, O children of Israel, an affirmation of Adonai YHWH. And I also have given you cleanness of teeth in all your cities and want of bread in all your places, still you have not returned to me, declares YHWH. And also I have withheld the rain from you when there were still 3 months to the harvest, and I caused it to rain on one city, and caused it not to rain on another city, one piece was rained upon, and the piece where it rained not withered. So 2 or 3 cities wandered to one city, to drink water, but they were not satisfied, still you have not returned to me, declares YHWH. I have stricken you with blasting and mildew, when your gardens and your vineyards and your fig trees and your olive trees increased, the locusts devoured them, still you have not returned to me, declares YHWH. I have sent among you the pestilence after the manner of Egypt, your young men I have killed with the sword, and have taken away your horses. And I have made the stink of your camps to come up into your nostrils, still you have not returned to me, declares YHWH. I have overthrown some of you, as Elohim overthrew Sodom and Gomorrah, and you were as a firebrand plucked out of the burning, still you have not returned to me, declares YHWH. Therefore this is what I will do to you, O Israel, and because I will do this to you, prepare to meet your Elohim, O Israel. For lo, he that formed the mountains and creates the wind, and declares to man what is his thought, that makes the morning darkness and treads on the high places of the earth, YHWH, the Elohim of hosts is his name. Hear this word that I take up against you, even a dirge, O house of Israel. The virgin of Israel is fallen, she will no more rise, she is forsaken upon her land, there is none to raise her up. Because this is what Adonai YHWH declares, the city that went out by 1,000 will leave by 100, and what went out by 100 will leave by 10, to the house of Israel. Because this is what YHWH declares to the house of Israel, inquire you of me and you will live, but seek not Bethel, nor enter into Gilgal, and pass not to Beersheba, for Gilgal will certainly go into captivity, and Bethel will come to trouble. Inquire of YHWH and you will live, unless he devours like supernatural fire in the house of Joseph, and devours it, and there is none to extinguish it in Bethel. You who turn judgment to wormwood and leave off righteousness in the land, inquire of him that fashioned the 7 stars, Pleiades and Orion, and turned the shadow of darkness into the morning, and makes the day dark with night, that calls for the waters of the sea, and pours them out upon the face of the earth, YHWH is his name. Who is brightening up the ruined against the strong and the violent against a fortress comes. They hate him that judges in the gate and they abhor him that speaks soundly. Therefore because you trample upon the poor and you take from him burdens of wheat, you have built houses of quarried stone, but you will not live in them, you have planted precious vineyards, but you will not drink wine from them. Because I know your manifold rebellions and your numerous sins, they distress the righteous, they take a bribe, and they turn aside the poor in the gate from their rights. Therefore the prudent will be silent in that time, because it is an evil time. Inquire of good, and not bad, that you may live, and so YHWH, the Elohim of hosts, will be with you as you have spoken. Hate the bad and love the good, and establish judgment in the gate, it may be that YHWH Elohim of hosts will be gracious to the remnant of Joseph. Therefore YHWH, the Elohim of hosts, Adonai declares this, wailing will be in all streets, and they will say in all the highways, alas! Alas! And they will call the farmers to mourning, and such as are talented of dirges to wailing. And in all vineyards will be wailing, because I will pass through you, declares YHWH. Woe to ye that desire the day of YHWH! To what end is it for you? The day of YHWH is darkness, and not light. As if a man did flee from a lion and a bear met him, or went into the house and leaned his hand on the wall, and a snake bit him. Will not the day of YHWH be darkness, and not light? Even very dark, and no brightness in it? I despise your holidays, and I will not be refreshed in your solemn assemblies. Though you offer me whole burnt offerings and your meat offerings, I will not accept them, neither will I regard the peace offerings of your fattened animals. Take away from me the sounds of your songs, because I will not hear the melody of your musical instruments. But let judgment run down as waters and righteousness as a mighty stream. Have you offered to me sacrifices and offerings in the uninhabited land 40 years, O house of Israel? But you have borne the tabernacle of your Moloch and keen your images, the star of your Elohim that you made to yourselves. Therefore I will cause you to go into captivity beyond Damascus, declares YHWH, whose name is Elohim of hosts. Woe to them that are at ease in Zion and trust in the mountain of Samaria, that are named chief of the nations, to whom the house of Israel came. Pass you to Calneh, and see, and from there go to Hamath the Great, then go down to Gath of the Philistines. Are they better than these kingdoms? Or their border greater than your border? Did that put far away the bad day, and cause the seat of violence to come near, that lie on beds of ivory and stretch themselves on their couches, and eat the lambs out of the flock, and the calves out of the midst of the stall, that chant to the sound of the guitar, and invent to themselves instruments of music like David, that drink wine in bowls, and anoint themselves with the chief ointments, but they are not grieved for the affliction of Joseph. Therefore now will they go captive with the first that go captive, and the banquet of them that stretch themselves will be removed. Adonai Yhwh has adjured by himself, declares Yhwh, the Elohim of hosts, I abhor the excellency of Jacob and hate his palaces, therefore I will deliver up the city with all that is in it. And it will come to pass, if there remain 10 men in one house, that they will die. And a man's uncle will take him up, and he that burns him, to bring out the bones out of the house, and will say to him that is by the sides of the house, Is there yet any with you? And he will say, No. Then will he say, Hold your tongue, because we may not make mention of the name of Yhwh. For lo, Yhwh commands, and he will strike the great house with breaches, and the little house with clefts. Will horses run upon the rock? Will one plow there with oxen? For you have turned judgment into gall, and the fruit of righteousness into hemlock, O you who are rejoicing at nothing, who are saying, Have we not by our strength taken to ourselves horns? But look, I will raise up against you a nation, O house of Israel, declares Yhwh the Elohim of hosts, and they will afflict you from the entering in of Hemath to the river of the wilderness. Thus has Adonai Yhwh showed me, and lo, he is forming locusts at the beginning of the ascending of the latter growth, and lo, the latter growth is after the mouths of the king. And it came to pass that when they had made an end of eating the grass of the land, then I said, O Adonai Yhwh, forgive I beseech you, by whom will Jacob arise? Because he is insignificant. Yhwh was sorry for this, it will not be, declares Yhwh. This is what Adonai Yhwh showed to me, and see, Adonai Yhwh called to contend by fire, and it devoured the great deep and was consuming up the land. Then I said, O Adonai Yhwh, cease I beseech you, by who will Jacob arise? Because he is insignificant. Yhwh was sorry for this, this also will not be, declares Adonai Yhwh. This he showed me, and see, Adonai stood on a wall made by a plumb line, with a plumb line in his hand. And Yhwh said to me, Amos, what do you see? And I replied, A plumb line. Then declared Adonai, Look, I will set a plumb line in the center of my people Israel, I will not again pass by them any more, and the worship places of Isaac will be desolate, and the sanctuaries of Israel will be laid waste, and I will rise against the house of Jeroboam with the sword. Then Amaziah the priest of Bethel sent to Jeroboam king of Israel, saying, Amos has conspired against you among the house of Israel, the land is not able to bear all his words. Because this is what Amos says, Jeroboam will die by the sword, and Israel will certainly be led away captive out of their own land. Also Amaziah said to Amos, O you seer, go, escape away to the land of Judah, and there eat food and prophesy there, but prophesy not again any more at Bethel, because it is the king's sanctuary and it is the king's court. Then Amos answered and said to Amaziah, I was no prophet, neither was I a prophet's son, but I was a herdsman, and a gatherer of sycamore fruit, and Yhwh took me as I followed the flock, and Yhwh said to me, Go, prophesy to my people Israel. Now therefore hear the word of Yhwh, you say, Prophesy not against Israel, and drop not your word against the house of Isaac. Therefore this is what Yhwh declares, Your woman will be a prostitute in the city, and your sons and daughters will fall by the sword, and your land will be divided by measuring line. And you will die in a polluted land, and Israel will certainly go into captivity out of his land. This is what Adonai Yhwh has revealed to me, now see, a basket of summer fruit. And he said, Amos, what do you see? And I replied, A basket of summer fruit. Then Yhwh declared to me, The end has come upon my people of Israel, I will not again pass by them any more. And the songs of the temple will be wailing in that day, declares Adonai Yhwh, there will be many dead bodies in every place, they will cast them out with silence. Hear this, O you that swallow up the poor, even to make the poor of the land to fail, saying, When will the new moon be gone, so that we may sell corn? And the Sabbath, that we may set forth wheat, making the ephah small and the shekel great, and falsifying the balances by deceit? That we may buy the poor for silver and the poor for a pair of shoes, yes, and sell the refuse of the wheat? Yhwh has adjured by the excellency of Jacob, certainly I will never forget any of their works. Will not the land tremble for this, and every one mourn that lives in it? And it will rise up wholly as a flood, and it will be cast out and drowned, as by the flood of Egypt. And it will come to pass in that day, declares Adonai Yhwh, that I will cause the sun to go in at noon, and I will darken the earth in the clear day, and I will turn your holidays into mourning, and all your songs into a dirge. And I will bring up sackcloth on all loins, and baldness on every head, and I will make it as the mourning of an only son, and the end of it as a bitter day. Look, the days come, declares Adonai Yhwh, that I will send a famine in the land, not a famine of food, nor a thirst for water, but of hearing the words of Yhwh, and they will wander from sea to sea, and from the north even to the east, they will run to and fro to seek the word of Yhwh, and will not find it. In that day will the fair virgins and young men faint for thirst. They that swear by the sin of Samaria and say, Your Elohim, O Dan, lives, and the manner of Beersheba lives, even they will fall and never rise up again. I have seen Adonai standing by the altar, and he declares, Strike the capital and the threshold shake, and cut them off by the head, all of them. And their posterity with a sword I do kill, he that flees of them will not flee away, and he that escapes of them shall not make good his escape. Though they dig into Sheol, there will my hand take them, though they climb up to the cosmos, there will I bring them down, and though they hide themselves in the top of Carmel, I will search and take them out from there, and though they are hidden from my sight in the bottom of the sea, there will I command the serpent, and he will bite them, and though they go into captivity before their enemies, there will I command the sword, and it will kill them, and I will set my eyes on them for bad and not for good. And Adonai Yhwh of hosts is he that touches the land, and it will melt, and all that live in it will mourn, and it will rise up wholly like a flood, and will be drowned, as by the flood of Egypt. It is he that builds his stairs in the cosmos, and has founded his troop in the earth, he that calls for the waters of the sea, and pours them out upon the surface of the earth, Yhwh is his name. Are you not as children of the Ethiopians to me, O children of Israel? Declares Yhwh. Have I not brought up Israel from the land of Egypt? And the Philistines from Caphtor, and the Syrians from Kir? Look, the eyes of Adonai Yhwh are upon the sinful kingdom, and I will destroy it from off the surface of the earth, saving that I will not annihilate the house of Jacob, declares Yhwh. For lo, I will command, and I will sift the house of Israel among all nations, like as grain is sifted in a sieve, still a pouch worth of grain will not fall on the ground. All the sinners of my people will die by the sword that say, The bad will not overtake nor prevent us. In that day I will raise up the pavilion of David that is fallen, and wall up the breaches, and I will raise up his ruins, and I will rebuild it as in the days of old, that they may possess the remnant of Edom, and of all the heathen that are called by my name, declares Yhwh that does this. Watch, the days come, declares Yhwh, that the plowman will overtake the reaper, and the treader of grapes him that sows seed, and the hill country will distill sweet wine, and all the hills will melt. And I will restore the captivity of my people of Israel, and they will build the waste cities and inhabit them, and they will plant vineyards and drink its wine, they will also make gardens and eat its produce. And I will plant them on their land, and they will no more be pulled up out of their land that I have given them, declares Yhwh Elohim. The vision of Obadiah. This is what Adonai Yhwh declares concerning Edom. We have heard a rumor from Yhwh, and an ambassador is sent among the heathen. Arise, and let us rise up against her in battle. Look, I have made you small among the heathen, you are greatly despised. The pride of your heart has deceived you, you that live in the clefts of the rock, whose habitation is high, that says in his heart, Who will bring me down to the ground? Though you exalt yourself as the eagle, and though you set your nest among the stars, there I will bring you down, declares Yhwh. If thieves came to you, if robbers by night, how are you cut off? Would they not have stolen until they had enough? If the grape gatherers came to you, would they not leave some grapes? How are the things of Esau searched out? How are his hidden things sought up? All the men of your confederacy have brought you even to the border, the men that were at peace with you have deceived you, and prevailed against you, they that eat your food have laid a wound under you, there is no understanding in him. Will I not in that day, declares Yhwh, even destroy the wise ones out of Edom and understanding out of the mount of Esau? And your mighty men, O Teman, will be dismayed, to the end that everyone from the mount of Esau may be cut off by slaughter. Because of your violence against your brother Jacob, shame will cover you, and you will be cut off for the ages. In the day that you stood on the other side, in the day that the foreigners carried away captive his forces, and foreigners entered into his gates and cast lots upon Jerusalem, even you were as one of them. But you should not have looked on the day of your brother in the day that he became a foreigner, neither should you have rejoiced over the children of Judah in the day of their destruction, neither should you have spoken proudly in the day of distress. You should not have entered into the gate of my people in the day of their calamity, yes, you should not have looked on their affliction in the day of their calamity, nor have laid hands on their substance in the day of their calamity, Neither should you have stood in the crossroads, to cut off those of his that did escape, neither should you have delivered up those of his that did remain in the day of distress. Because the day of YHWH is near upon all the heathen, as you have done, it will be done to you, your reward will return upon your own head. Because as you have drunk upon my holy mountain, so will all the heathen drink continually, yes, they will drink and they will swallow down, and they will be as though they had not existed. But upon Mount Zion will be deliverance and there will be holiness, and the house of Jacob will possess their possessions. And the house of Jacob will be a fire, and the house of Joseph a flame, and the house of Esau for stubble, and they will kindle in them and devour them. And there will not be any remaining from the house of Esau, because YHWH has spoken it. And they of the south will possess the mount of Esau, and they of the plain the Philistines, and they will possess the fields of Ephraim, and the fields of Samaria, and Benjamin will possess Gilead. And the captivity of this host from the children of Israel will possess that of the Canaanites, even to Zarephath, and the captivity of Jerusalem that is in Sepharad, will possess the cities of the south. And saviors will come up on Mount Zion to judge the mount of Esau, and the kingdom will be YHWH's. Now the word of YHWH came to Jonah the son of Amittai saying, Get up, go to Nineveh, that great city and cry against it, because their badness has come up before me. But Jonah got up to flee to Tarshish from the presence of YHWH and went down to Joppa. And he found a ship going to Tarshish, so he paid the fare and went down into it, to go with them to Tarshish from the presence of YHWH. But YHWH sent out a great wind into the sea and there was a mighty storm in the sea, so that the ship was likely to be broken. Then the mariners were afraid, and cried every one to his Elohim, and cast out the articles that were in the ship into the sea, to lighten it of them. But Jonah had gone down into the sides of the ship, and he lay, and was fast asleep. So the shipmaster came to him, and said to him, How come you rest, O sleeper? Get up and call on your Elohim, if so be that Elohim will think on us so that we do not perish. And they said every one to his mate, Come, and let us cast lots so that we may know for whose cause this badness is upon us. So they cast lots and the lot fell on Jonah. Then they said to him, Tell us, we ask you, for what cause has this badness come on us? What is your occupation? And where do you come from? What is your country? And of what people are you? And he replied to them, I am a Hebrew, and I fear YHWH, the Elohim of the cosmos that has made the sea and the dry land. Then were the men exceedingly afraid and said to him, Why have you done this? Because the men knew that he fled from the presence of YHWH, because he had told them. Then they said to him, What will we do for you so that the sea may be calm to us? Because the seas moved and were raging. And he replied to them, Take me up and cast me out into the sea, so will the sea be calm for you, because I know that for my sake this great storm is upon you. Nevertheless the men rowed hard to bring it to the land, but they could not, because the sea moved, and was raging against them. Therefore they cried to YHWH and said, We beseech you, O YHWH, we beseech you, let us not perish for this man's life, and lay not upon us innocent blood, because you, O YHWH, have done as it pleased you. So they took up Jonah, and cast him out into the sea, and the sea ceased from her raging. Then the men feared YHWH exceedingly and offered a sacrifice to YHWH, and made votive offerings. Now YHWH had prepared a large fish to swallow up Jonah. And Jonah was in the belly of the fish 3 days and 3 nights. Then Jonah prayed to YHWH his Elohim out of the fish's belly and said, I cried by reason of my affliction to YHWH, and he heard me. Out of the belly of Sheol I cried, and you heard my voice. Because you had cast me into the deep sea, in the midst of the seas, and the floods compassed me all around, all your breakers and your waves passed over me. Then I said, I am cast out of your sight, still I will look again toward your holy temple. The waters surrounded me about, even to my breath, the depth closed around about me, the seaweed was wrapped around my head. I went down to the bottoms of the mountains, the earth with her bars were around me for the ages, still you have brought up my life from the pit, O YHWH my Elohim. When my life fainted within me I remembered YHWH, and my prayer came to you, into your holy temple. They that observe lying vanities forsake their own mercy. But I will sacrifice to you with the voice of thanksgiving, I will pay what I have vowed. Deliverances from YHWH. Then YHWH spoke to the fish, and it vomited out Jonah on the dry land. And the word of YHWH came to Jonah the second time saying, Get up, go to Nineveh, that great city and proclaim to it the proclamation that I command you. So Jonah arose and went to Nineveh according to the word of YHWH. Now Nineveh was an exceedingly great city of 3 days' journey. Then Jonah began to enter into the city a day's journey, and he cried and said, Yet in 40 days and Nineveh will be overthrown. So the people of Nineveh believed Elohim, and proclaimed a fast and put on sackcloth, from the greatest of them even to the least of them. Because word came to the king of Nineveh, and he arose from his throne and he laid his robe from him, and covered himself with sackcloth and sat in ashes. And he caused it to be proclaimed and published through Nineveh by the decree of the king and his nobles, saying, Let neither man or animal, herd or flock taste anything, let them not feed nor drink water, but let man and animal be covered with sackcloth, and cry mightily to Elohim, yes, let them turn everyone from his bad ways, and from the violence that is in their hands. Who can tell if Elohim will turn and change his mind, and turn away from his fierce anger so that we do not perish? And Elohim saw their works, that they turned from their bad ways, and Elohim changed his mind of the badness, that he had said that he would do to them, and he did it not. But it displeased Jonah exceedingly, and he was very angry. And he prayed to YHWH and said, I pray you, O YHWH, was not this my saying when I was still in my country? Therefore I fled before to Tarshish, because I knew that you are a gracious Elohim and merciful, slow to anger and of great kindness, and you regret of the badness. Therefore now, O YHWH, take, I beseech you, my life from me, because it is better for me to die than to live. Then YHWH replied, Are you doing good to be angry? So Jonah went out of the city, and sat on the east side of the city, and there made him a booth, and sat under it in the shadow, until he might see what would become of the city. Then YHWH Elohim prepared a gourd, and made it to come up over Jonah so that it might be a shadow over his head, to deliver him from his grief. So, Jonah was exceeding glad of the gourd. But Elohim prepared a worm when the morning dawned the next day, and it attacked the gourd so that it withered. And it came to pass when the sun did arise, that Elohim prepared a vehement east wind, and the sun beat on the head of Jonah so that he fainted, and wished in himself to die, and said, It is better for me to die than to live. Then Elohim said to Jonah, Are you doing good to be angry for the gourd? And he replied, I do well to be angry, even to death. Then YHWH replied to him, You have had pity on the gourd for which you have not labored, neither made it grow, that came up in a night and perished in a night, and should I not spare Nineveh, that great city in which are more than 120,000 persons that cannot discern between their right hand and their left hand, and also much cattle? The word of YHWH that came to Micah the Merazite in the days of Jotham, Ahaz, and Hezekiah, kings of Judah, that he saw concerning Samaria and Jerusalem. Hear all you people, listen O earth, and all that are in it, and let Adonai YHWH be witness against you, Adonai from his holy temple. For observe, YHWH comes out of his standing place and will come down, and march upon the worship places of the earth. And the mountains will be liquefied under him, and the valleys will be broken up, as wax before the fire, and as the waters that are poured down a steep place. For the rebellion of Jacob is all this, and for the sins of the house of Israel. What is the transgression of Jacob? Is it not Samaria? And what are the worship places of Judah? Are they not Jerusalem? Therefore I will make Samaria as a ruined heap of the field, and as plantings of a vineyard, and I will pour down the stones into the valley, and I will uncover its foundations. And all the graven images will be beaten to pieces, and all the hire of prostitutes will be burnt with the fire, and all the idols will I lay desolate. Because she gathered it of the hire of a prostitute, and they will return to the hire of a prostitute. Therefore I will mourn and wail, I will go stripped and naked, I will make a wailing like the sea serpent and mourning as the owls, because her wound is incurable. For it has come to Judah, he has come to the gate of my people, even to Jerusalem. Declare it not at Gath, weep not at all, in the house of Aphor roll yourself in the dust. Pass you away, you inhabitant of Saphir, having your shame naked, the inhabitant of Zanan came not out in the morning of Bethesel, he will receive of you as standing ground. Because the inhabitant of Meroth waited carefully for good, but badness came down from YHWH to the gate of Jerusalem. O you inhabitant of Lachish, bind the chariot to the swift animal, she is the beginning of the sin to the daughter of Zion, because the rebellions of Israel were found in you. Therefore you will give presents to Moresheth Gath, the houses of Oxib will be a deception to the kings of Israel. Still I will bring an heir to you, O inhabitant of Mareshah, he will come to Adullam the glory of Israel. Shave your heads in mourning for the children in whom you fancy, make yourselves as bald as the eagle, for they will go from you into exile. Woe to them that legislate sorrow and work distress upon their beds. When the morning is light, they practice law, because it is in the power of their hand. And they covet fields, and seize them by plunder, and houses by taking them away, so they violate a man in his house, even a man in his possessions. Therefore this is what YHWH declares, Look, against these aristocrats I will devise bad, from which you will not remove your necks, neither will you go haughtily, because this time is evil. In that day will one take up a parable against you, and wail with a mournful song and say, We are utterly plundered, he has changed the portion of my people, how has he removed it from me? Turning away he had assigned our fields. Therefore you will have nothing that will cast a cord by lot in the company of YHWH. You do not prophesy, they do prophesy, they do not prophesy to these, it does not remove the shame. O you that are named the house of Jacob, is the spirit of YHWH vexed? Are these his practices? Do not my words do good to him that walks correctly? Even of late my people are risen up as an enemy, from the outer garment the honorable ornament you strip off, from the confident passers-by, you who are turning back from war. The women of my people have you cast out from their comfortable houses, from their children you have taken away my glory for the ages. Arise you and depart, because this is not your rest, because it has become unclean, it will deal corruptly with you, even with a painful measured portion. If a man walking in the Spirit and falsehood does lie saying, I will prophesy to you of wine and of strong drink, he will even be the prophet of this people. I will certainly assemble, O Jacob, all of you, I will certainly gather the remnant of Israel, I will place them together as the sheep of Bozrah, as the flock in the midst of their fold, they will make a great murmuring by reason of the multitude of men. Gone up has the breaker before them, they have broken through, yes, they pass through the gate, yes, they go out through it. And pass on does their king before them, and YHWH at their head. And I said, Here I ask you, O heads of Jacob and you rulers of the house of Israel, is it not for you to know litigation? Who hate the good and love the bad, who seize their hides from off them, and their food from off their bones, who also eat the food of my people and stripe their hides from off them, and they break up their substance, and chop them in pieces, as for the pot and as flesh within the cauldron. Then will they cry to YHWH but he will not hear them, he will even hide his face from them at that time, as they have behaved themselves ill in their practices. This is what YHWH declares concerning the speakers that make my people err, that bite with their teeth and cry, Peace, and he that puts not into their mouths, they even prepare war against him. Therefore night will be to you, that you will not have a vision, and it will be dark to you so that you will not divine, and the sun will go down over the speakers, and the day will be dark over them. Then will the seers be ashamed and the diviners confounded, yes, they will all cover their lips, because there is no answer of Elohim. But truly I am full of power by the spirit of YHWH, and of judgment and of might, to declare to Jacob his rebellion and to Israel his sin. Hear this, I ask you, you chiefs of the house of Jacob, and rulers of the house of Israel that do abominable litigation, and pervert all equity. They build up Zion with blood, and Jerusalem with injustice. The chiefs govern for a bribe, and the ministers teach for hire, and the prophets divine for money, yet will they lean upon YHWH and say, Is not YHWH among us? No bad can come upon us. Therefore will Zion for your sake be plowed as a field, and Jerusalem will become ruined heaps, and the temple hill as the high places of the forest. But in the last days it will come to pass, that the hill of the sanctuary of YHWH will be established in the top of the mountains, and it will be exalted above the hills, and people will flow to it. And many nations will come and say, Come, and let us go up to the mountain of YHWH, and to the sanctuary of the Elohim of Jacob. And he will teach us of his ways and we will walk in his paths, because the Torah will go out from Zion, and the word of YHWH from Jerusalem. And he will judge among many people, and rebuke strong nations afar off, and they will beat their swords into plowshares, and their spears into pruning hooks. Nation will not lift up a sword against nation, neither will they learn war any more. But they will sit everyone under their vine and under their fig tree, and none will make them afraid, because the mouth of YHWH of hosts has spoken it. Because all people will walk everyone in the name of his Elohim, and we will walk in the name of YHWH alone for the ages of ages. In that day declares YHWH, will I assemble her that is lame, and I will gather her that is driven out and her that I have afflicted, and I will make her that is lame a remnant, and her that was cast far off a strong nation, and YHWH will reign over them in Mount Zion from now and even for the ages. And you, O tower of the flock, the stronghold of the daughter of Zion, to you will it come, even the former dominion, the kingdom will come to the daughter of Jerusalem. Now why do you cry out aloud? Is there no king in you? Is your counselor killed? Because pains have overtaken you as a woman in labor. Be in pain, and in labor to bring forth, O daughter of Zion, like a woman in labor, because now you will go out of the city, and you will live in the field and you will go to Babylon. There you will be delivered, YHWH will ransom you from the hand of your enemies. Now also many nations are gathered against you that say, Let her be defiled, and let our eye look upon Zion. But they know not the thoughts of YHWH, neither understand they his counsel, because he will gather them as the sheaves into the threshing floor. Arise and thresh, O daughter of Zion, because I will make your horn iron and I will make your hoofs brass, and you will beat in pieces many people, and I will consecrate their gain to YHWH, and their substance to the master of the whole earth. Now gather yourself in troops, O daughter of troops, he had laid siege against us, they will kill the governor of Israel with a club upon the jaw. But you, Bethlehem Ephratah, though you are little among the thousands of Judah, out of you shall mine come forth, that is to be ruler in Israel, whose goings forth have been from of old, from the days of age past time. Therefore will he give them up until the time that she that labors has engendered. Then the remnant of his brothers will return to the children of Israel. Then he will stand and feed in the strength of YHWH, in the majesty of the name of YHWH as Elohim, and they will remain, for now will he be great unto the ends of the earth. And this one will be the peace, when the Assyrian will come into our land, and when he will tread in our palaces, then will we raise against him 7 shepherds, and 8 principal men. And they will waste the land of Assyria with the sword, and the land of Nimrod in its entrances, then will he deliver us from the Assyrian, when he comes into our land, and when he treads within our borders. And the remnant of Jacob will be in the midst of many people as a dew from YHWH, as the showers upon the grass that lingers not for man, nor waits for the sons of men. And the remnant of Jacob will be among the Gentiles in the midst of many people as a lion among the animals of the forest, as a young lion among the flocks of sheep. Who, if he goes through, both treads down and tears in pieces, and none can deliver. Your hand will be lifted up upon your adversaries, and all your enemies will be cut off. Then it will come to pass in that day, declares YHWH, that I will cut off your horses out of the midst of you, and I will destroy your chariots, and I will cut off the cities of your land and throw down all your strongholds, and I will cut off sorcery out of your hand, and you will have no more soothsayers, your graven images will I also cut off, and your standing images, out of the middle of you, and you will no more worship the work of your hands. And I will pluck up your groves out of the middle of you, so I will destroy your cities. And I will execute vengeance in anger and fury on the heathen, such as they have not heard. Hear now what YHWH declares, arise, contend before the mountains and let the hills hear your voice. Hear you, O mountains, YHWH's controversy, and ye strong foundations of the earth, because YHWH has a controversy with his people and he will plead with Israel. O my people, what have I done to you? And where have I wearied you? Testify against me. Because I brought you up out of the land of Egypt and ransomed you out of the house of slaves, and I sent before you Moses, Aaron, and Miriam. O my people, remember now what Balak king of Moab consulted, and what Balaam the son of Beor answered him from Shittim to Gilgal, that you may know the righteousness of YHWH. With what will I come before YHWH, and bow myself before the high Elohim? Will I come before him with whole burnt offerings, with calves of a year old? Will YHWH be pleased with thousands of rams, or with 10,000 of rivers of oil? Will I give my firstborn for my transgression, the fruit of my body for the sin of my life? He has shown you, O man, what is good, and what does YHWH require of you, but to do justly and to love goodness, and to walk humbly with your Elohim? YHWH's voice cries to the city, and the man of wisdom will see your name, obey ye the branch, and who has appointed him? Are there still the treasures of wickedness in the house of the wicked, and the wasting measure that is abominable? Will I count them pure with the wicked balances, and with the bag of deceitful weights? Because the rich men are full of violence and the inhabitants have spoken lies, and their tongue is deceitful in their mouth. Therefore I will also make you sick in scourging you, in making you desolate because of your sins. You will eat but not be satisfied, and your casting down will be in the middle of you, and you will take hold, but will not deliver, and what you deliver will I give up to the sword. You will sow but you will not reap, you will tread the olives but you will not anoint yourself with oil, and sweet wine, but will not drink wine. Because the statutes of Omri are observed, and all the works of the house of Ahab, and you walk in their counsels, that I should make you a desolation, and the inhabitants a hissing, therefore you will bear the reproach of my people. Woe is me! Because I am as when they have gathered the summer fruits, as the grape gleanings of the vintage, there is no cluster to eat, I desired the first ripened fruit. The faithful are perished out of the land, and there is none upright among mankind, they all lie in wait for blood, they hunt everyone his brother with a net. That they may do bad with both hands earnestly, the ruler asks, and the judge asks for a bribe, and the distinguished, he utters his mischievous desire, so they weave together. The best of them are as a briar, the most upright are sharper than a thorn hedge, the day of your watchman and your visitation comes, now will be their perplexity. Trust not in a friend, put not your confidence in a friend, guard the doors of your mouth from her that lies in your bosom. For the son dishonors the dad, the daughter rises up against her mother, the daughter-in-law against her mother-in-law, a man's enemies are the people of his own house. In YHWH I do watch, I will wait for the Elohim of my deliverance, my Elohim will hear me. Rejoice not against me, O my enemy, when I fall, I will arise, when I sit in darkness, YHWH will be a light to me. I will bear the indignation of YHWH because I have sinned against him, until he pleads my cause and executes judgment for me. He will bring me out to the light, and I will see his righteousness. Then she that is my enemy will see it, and shame will cover her that said to me, Where is YHWH your Elohim? My eyes will see her, now will she be trampled down as the mire of the streets. In the day that your walls are to be rebuilt, in that day will the decree be far removed. In that day also he will come even to you from Assyria, and from the fortified cities, and from the fortress even to the river, and from sea to sea, and from mountain to mountain. Notwithstanding the land will be desolate because of them that live in it, because of the fruit of their practices. Shepherd your people with your branch, the flock of your heritage that live solitarily in the forest, in the middle of Carmel, let them feed in Bashan and Gilead, as in the days of old. According to the days of your coming out of the land of Egypt I will reveal to him extraordinary things. The nations will see and be confounded at all their might, they will lay their hand on their mouth, their ears will be deaf. They will lick the dust like a snake, they will move out of their holes like worms from the ground, they will be trembling of YHWH alone, and will fear because of you. Who is an alone like you, that pardons depravity and passes over the transgression of the remnant of his heritage? He has not retained for antiquity his anger, because he delights in kindness. He will turn again, he will have compassion on us, he will subdue our depravities, and you will cast all their sins into the depths of the sea. You will perform the truth to Jacob, and the mercy to Abraham that you have adjured to our ancestors from the days of old. The burden of Nineveh. The scroll of the vision of Nahum the Elkoshite. Elohim is jealous and YHWH takes vengeance, YHWH avenges and is dominate. YHWH will take vengeance on his adversaries, and he reserves wrath for his enemies. YHWH is slow to anger and great in power, and will not at all clear the wicked. YHWH has his way in the whirlwind and in the storm, and the cloud mass on the ground is his footing. He rebukes the sea and makes it dry, and dries up all the rivers. Bashan withers and Carmel, and the sprout of Lebanon droops. The mountains quake at him, and the hills liquefy, and the earth is burned at his presence, yes, the world and all that live in it. Who can stand before his indignation? And who can abide in the heat of his anger? His fury rages like supernatural fire, and the rocks are thrown down by him. YHWH is good, a stronghold in the day of trouble, and he knows them that seek refuge in him. And with a flood passing over, an end he makes of its place, and his enemies does the darkness pursue. What do you imagine against YHWH? He will make a termination, affliction will not rise up the second time. Because while rulers are perplexed, and with their drink are drunken, they have been consumed as stubble fully dried. There is one that comes out from you that plots bad against YHWH, a worthless counselor. This is what YHWH declares, though they are quiet, and likewise many, still will they be cut down, when he will pass through. Though I have afflicted you, I will afflict you no more. Because now I will break his yoke from off you and will burst your bonds apart. And YHWH has given a commandment concerning you, that no more of your name is sown. Out of the house of your Elohim will I cut off the graven image and the cast image, I will make your grave, because you are vile. Watch upon the mountains the feet of him that brings good news, that publishes peace. O Judah, observe your festival gatherings, complete your vows, because the worthless will no more pass through you, he is dashed to pieces. He that dashes in pieces has come up before your face, guard the stronghold, watch the way, make your loins strong, fortify your power mightily. Because YHWH has turned away the excellency of Jacob, as the excellency of Israel, because the wasters have emptied them out, and destroyed their branch. The shield of his mighty men is made red, the valiant men are in scarlet, the chariots will be with flaming torches in the day of his preparation, and the fir trees will be terribly shaken. The chariots will rage in the streets, they will jostle one against another in the broad ways, they will seem like torches, they will run like the lightnings. He will remember his great one, they will stumble in their walk. They will hurry to the wall, and the overshadow will be established. The gates of the rivers will be opened, and the palace will be dissolved. And Hazab will be led away captive, she will be brought up, and her maids will lead her as with the voice of doves, playing timbrel on their breasts. But Nineveh is of old like a pool of water, still they will flee away. Stand, stand, will they cry, but none will look back. Seize you silver, seize you gold, and there is no end to the prepared things, to the abundance of all desirable vessels. She is empty and void, and waste, and the heart melts and the knees hit together, and much pain is in all loins, and the faces of them all gather heat. Where is the living place of the lions, and the feeding place of the young lions, where the lion, even the old lion walked, and the lion's cubs, and none made them afraid? The lion did tear in pieces enough for his cubs, and strangled for his lionesses, and filled his caves with prey, and his dens with torn animals. Look, I am against you, declares YHWH of hosts, and I will burn her chariots in the smoke, and the sword will devour your young lions, and I will cut off your prey from the land, and the voice of your messengers will no more be heard. Woe to the bloody city! It is all full of lies and robbery, the prey departs not, the sound of a whip, and the noise of the rattling of the wheels, and of the rushing horses, motorized vehicles, and of the jumping chariots, aircraft. The horsemen lift up both the bright sword and the glittering spear, and there is an increase of killed, and a great number of corpses, and there is no end of their corpses, they stumble on their corpses, because of the increase of the prostitution from the well-favored whore, the mistress of sorcery that sells nations through her prostitution, and families through her witchcraft. See, I am against you, declares YHWH of hosts, and I will discover your skirts upon your face, and I will show the nations your nakedness, and the kingdoms your shame. And I will cast detestable things on you, and make you foolish, and will set you as a spectacle. Then it will come to pass that all they that look on you will flee from you, and say, Nineveh is laid waste, who will bemoan her? Where will I find comforters for you? Are you better than Populus? No, that was situated among the rivers, which had the waters around it, whose rampart was the sea, and her wall was from the sea? Ethiopia and Egypt were her strength, and it was infinite, Put and Lubim were your helpers. Still was she carried away, she went into captivity, her young children also were dashed in pieces at the top of all the streets, and they cast lots for her honorable men, and all her great men were bound in chains. You also will be drunken, you will be hidden, you also will seek strength because of the enemy. All your strongholds will be like fig trees with the first ripened figs, if they are shaken, they will even fall into the mouth of the eater. Look, your people in the middle of you are women, the gates of your land will be set wide open to your enemies, the fire will devour your city gates. Draw waters for the siege, fortify your strongholds, go into clay and tread the mortar, make strong the brick kiln. There will the fire devour you, the sword will cut you off, it will eat you up like the cankerworm. Make yourself many as the cankerworm, make yourself many as the locusts. You have increased your merchants above the stars of the cosmos, the cankerworm spoils and flies away. Your crowned are as the locusts, and your captains as the great grasshoppers that camp in the hedges in the cold day, but when the sun arises they flee away and their place is not known where they are. Your shepherds slumber, O king of Assyria, your nobles will live in the dust, your people are scattered upon the mountains, and no man gathers them. There is no healing of your bruise, your wound has become diseased, all that hear the report about you will clap the hands over you, for over whom did not your wickedness pass continually? The burden that Habakkuk the prophet did see. O YHWH, how long will I cry, and you will not hear? Even cry out to you of violence, and you will not save. Why do you show me trouble and cause me to see mischief? Because plundering and violence are before me, and there is strife, and contention does lift itself up. Therefore the law is feeble and litigation will never go out, because the wicked will surround the righteous, therefore twisted litigation comes out. Observe you among the heathen and regard, and wonder marvelously, because I will work a work in your days that you will not believe, though it is told you. For lo, I raise up the Chaldeans, that bitter and hasty nation that will march through the breadth of the land, to possess the living places that are not theirs. They are terrible and dreadful, their judgment and their dignity will proceed from themselves. Their horses also are swifter than the leopards, and are more fierce than the evening wolves, and their horsemen will spread themselves, and their horsemen will come from far, they will fly as the eagle that hurries to eat. Wholly for violence it will come in, their faces swallowing up the east wind, and it will gather as the sand of captivity. And they will scoff at the kings, and the rulers will be a scorn to them, they will mock every stronghold, for they will pile up earth and seize it. Then will his mind change, and he will pass over and offend, imputing this his power to his Elohim. Are you not from antiquity, O YHWH Elohim, the Holy One? We will not die. O YHWH, you have ordained them for judgment, and, O mighty rock, you have established them for correction. Purer of eyes than to behold evil, to look on perverseness you are not able. Why do you see the treacherous? You keep silent when the wicked does swallow the more righteous than himself, and make men as the fish of the sea, as the creeping things that have no ruler over them? They take up all of them with the angle, they catch them in their net and gather them in their drag, therefore they rejoice and are glad. Therefore they sacrifice to their net and burn incense to their drag, because by them their portion is fat, and their food plenteous. Will they therefore empty their net, and not spare continually to kill the nations? I will stand on my watch and station myself in the tower, and will watch to see what he will say to me, and what I will answer when I am corrected. And YHWH answered me and said, Write the vision and make it plain on tablets so that he may swiftly read it. Because the vision is still for an appointed time, but at the end it will speak and not lie, though it lingers, wait for it, because it will certainly come, it will not delay. Lo! As for the conceited one, crooked is his life within him, but the righteous will live by his faith. Furthermore, just as wine is treacherous, he is a proud man, neither lives at home, who enlarges his desire as Sheol, and is his death and cannot be satisfied, but gathers to himself all nations, and assembles to himself all people. Will not all these take up a taunt against him, and in mocking derision against him, and say, Woe to him that increases what is not his? How long? And him that makes himself wealthy by loans. Will not your creditors rise up suddenly? And they who shall violently shake you, all at once become active? Because you have plundered many nations, all the residue of the people will spoil you, because of men's blood and for the violence of the land, of the city and of all that reside there. Woe to him that covets an unjust profit to his house so that he may set his nest on high, that he may be delivered from the hand of evil. You have consulted shame to your house by cutting off many people, and have sinned against yourself. Because the stone will cry out from the wall, and the beam out of the timber will answer it. Woe to him that builds a town with blood and establishes a city by injustice. Look, is it not of YHWH of hosts that the people will labor in the very fire, and the people will weary themselves in vain? Because the earth will be filled with the knowledge of the glory of YHWH as the waters cover the sea. Woe to him that gives his neighbor drink, that puts your bottle to him, and makes him drunk also, that you may look on their nakedness. You are filled with shame for glory, drink you also and let your foreskin be uncovered. The cup of YHWH's right hand will be turned to you, and shameful spewing will be on your glory. Because the violence of Lebanon will cover you, and the spoil of beasts that made them afraid, because of men's blood, and for the violence of the land, of the city, and of all that live in it. What profits the graven image that the maker that has engraved it, the cast image and a teacher of lies, that the maker of his work trusts in it, to make dumb idols? Woe to him that say to the wood, Awake, to the dumb stone, Arise, it will teach. Hey Google, see, it is laid over with gold and silver and there is no breath at all among it. But YHWH is in his holy temple, let all the earth keep silent before him. A prayer of Habakkuk the prophet concerning erring ones. O YHWH, I have heard your speech, and was afraid. O YHWH, restore your work in the midst of the years. In the midst of the years will you make known? In trouble will you remember compassion? Elohim came from Teman, and the Holy One from Mount Paran. Selah. His glory covered the skies and the earth was full of his praise. And his brightness was as the light, he had rays of light coming out of his hand, and there was the covering of his power. Before him went the plague, and fire bolts went out at his feet. He stood and measured the earth, he looked, and shook up the nations, and the ancient mountains were scattered, the age-lasting hills were reduced, his ways are age-lasting. I saw the tents of Ethiopia in affliction, and the curtains of the land of Midian did tremble. Against the rivers, is YHWH wroth? Against the rivers, is your anger? Against the sea, is your indignation? For you will ride on your horses, your chariots shall be salvation. To nakedness, is bared your bow, oaths of chastisement song. Selah. With rivers, you do cleave open the land. The mountains have seen, you they tremble, a downpour of waters, has passed along, the roaring deep, has given forth, his voice, on high his hand, has he uplifted. Sun, moon, have stood still, on high, like light, your arrows, speed along, like brightness, is the flash of your spear. You did march through the land in indignation, you did thresh the heathen in anger. You have come forth to the salvation of your people, to salvation, with your anointed one, you have crushed the head out of the house of the lawless one, bearing the foundation up to the neck, Selah. You have pierced, with his own staves, the head of his chiefs, they storm along, to scatter me, their exultant thought, is, in very deed, to devour the oppressed one, in a secret place. You did walk through the sea with your horses, through the swelling of great waters. When I heard, my belly trembled, my lips quivered at the voice, rottenness entered into my bones, and I trembled in myself so that I might wait quietly in the day of trouble. When he comes up to the people, he will invade them with his troops. Although the fig tree will not blossom, neither will fruit be in its vines, the labor of the olive will fail, and the fields will yield no produce, the flock will be cut off from the fold, and there will be no herd in the stalls. Still I will rejoice in YHWH, I will joy in the Elohim of my salvation. YHWH alone is my strength, and he will make my feet like hinds' feet, and he will make me to walk upon my high place. To the chief singer on my stringed instruments. The word of YHWH that came to Zephaniah the son of Cushi, the son of Gedaliah, the son of Amariah, the son of Hezekiah, in the days of Josiah the son of Ammon, king of Judah. I will utterly consume all things from off the land, declares YHWH. I will consume man and animal, I will consume the flying creatures of the sky and the fish from the sea, and the stumbling blocks with the wicked, and I will cut off mankind from off the land, declares YHWH. I will also stretch out my hand on Judah and on all the inhabitants of Jerusalem, and I will cut off the remnant of Baal from this place, and the name of the Shemarims, idolatrous priests, with the chief rulers, and those that worship the host of the cosmos on their housetops, and those that worship and that adjure by YHWH and that adjure by Malcolm, and those that are turned back from YHWH, and those that have not sought YHWH, nor inquired, by Urim Thummim for him. Hold your peace at the presence of Adonai YHWH, because the day of YHWH is at hand, because YHWH has prepared a sacrifice, he has consecrated his chosen. And it will come to pass in the day of YHWH's sacrifice, that I will punish the rulers and the king's children, and all such as are clothed with foreign vestments. In the same day I will also punish all those that leap on the threshold that fill their masters' houses with violence and treachery. And it will come to pass in that day, declares YHWH, that there will be the sound of a cry from the fish gate, and a howling from the second quarter, and a great fracturing from the hills. Wail, you inhabitants of Maktesh, for all the merchant people are cut down, all they that bear silver are cut off. And it will come to pass at that time, that I will search out Jerusalem with lamp, and punish the men that are settled on their lees, that say in their heart, YHWH will not do good, neither will he do bad. Therefore their goods will become a plunder, and their houses a desolation. They will also rebuild houses, but not inhabit them, and they will plant vineyards, but not drink its wine. The great day of YHWH is near, it is near and comes swiftly, even the voice of the day of YHWH, the mighty man will cry there bitterly. That day is a day of anger, a day of trouble and distress, a day of wastes and desolation, a day of darkness and calamity, a day of the cloud mass and thick clouds, a day of the ram's horn and alarm against the fortified cities, and against the high towers. And I will bring distress on men so that they will walk like blind men, because they have sinned against YHWH, and their blood will be poured out as dust and their flesh as the dung. Neither their silver nor their gold will be able to deliver them in the day of YHWH's anger, but the whole land will be devoured by the supernatural fire of his jealousy, because he will make even a speedy riddance of all them that reside in the land. Gather yourselves together, yes, gather together, O nation not desired, before the bringing forth of a statute, as chaff as the day passed on, while yet not come in upon you does the heat of the anger of YHWH, while yet not come in upon you does a day of the anger of YHWH. Seek YHWH, all you poor of the earth that have done his judgment, seek righteousness, seek humility, it may be you will be hidden in the day of YHWH's anger. Because Gaza will be forsaken, and Ashkelon a desolation, they will drive out Ashdod at the noonday, and Ekron will be rooted up. Woe to the inhabitants of the seacoast, the nation of the Kerethites. The word of YHWH is against you, O Canaan, the land of the Philistines, state of Palestine, I will even destroy you, that there will be no inhabitant. And in the seacoast there will be dwellings and cottages for shepherds, and folds for flocks. And the coast will be for the remnant of the house of Judah, they will feed there, in the houses of Ashkelon will they lie down at sunset, because YHWH their Elohim will visit them, and remove their captivity. I have heard the reproach of Moab, and the reviling words of the children of Ammon, whereby they have blasphemed my people and magnified themselves against their border. Therefore as I live, declares YHWH of hosts, the Elohim of Israel, certainly Moab will be as Sodom, and the children of Ammon as Gomorrah. Even the breeding of nettles, and salt pits and a far-lasting desolation, the residue of my people will plunder them, and the remnant of my people will possess them. This will they have for their pride, because they have reproached and magnified themselves against the people of YHWH of hosts. YHWH will be terrible to them, because he will make lean all the Elohim of the earth, and human beings will worship him, everyone from his locality, even all the isles of the heathen. You Ethiopians also, you will be killed by my sword. And he will stretch out his hand against the north and destroy Assyria, and will make Nineveh a desolation, dry as a desert. And flocks will lie down in the midst of her, all the animals of the nations. Both the pelican and a hedgehog will lodge in the upper lintels of it, their voice will sing in the windows, drought will be in the thresholds, because he will uncover the cedar work. This is the rejoicing city that lived carelessly, that said in its heart, I am, and there is none beside me. How has she become a desolation, a place for beasts to lie down in? Everyone that passes by her will hiss, and wag his hand. Woe to her that is filthy and polluted, to the oppressing city. She obeyed not the voice, she received not correction, she trusted not in YHWH, she drew not near to her Elohim. Her leaders within her are roaring lions, her judges are evening wolves, they have not gnawed the bone in the morning. Her speakers are wanton and treacherous people, her ministers have desecrated sacredness, they have done violence to the Torah. YHWH, the righteous one, is in her midst, he will not do injustice, every morning he brings his judgment to light, he fails not, but the unjust know no shame. I have cut off the nations, their towers are desolate, I made their streets waste so that none pass by, their cities are destroyed, so that there is no one, that there are no inhabitants. I said, certainly you will fear me, you will receive instruction, so their dwelling should not be cut off, however I punished them, but they rose early, and corrupted all their practices. Therefore wait on me, declares YHWH, until the day that I rise up to the prey. Because my determination is to gather the nations so that I may assemble the kingdoms, to pour on them my indignation, even all my fierce anger, because all the earth will be devoured with the supernatural fire of my jealousy. Because then I will turn to the people a purified language so that they may all call upon the name of YHWH, to serve him with one consent. From beyond the rivers of Ethiopia shall come, my worshippers, even the daughter of my dispersed, will bring my offerings. In that day will you not be ashamed for all your practices, where you have rebelled against me, because then I will remove from the midst of you those that rejoice in your pride, and you will no more be haughty because of my holy mountain. I will also leave in among you an afflicted and poor people, and they will trust in the name of YHWH. The remnant of Israel will not do injustice, nor speak lies, neither will a deceitful tongue be found in their mouth, because they will feed and lie down, and none will make them afraid. Sing, O daughter of Zion, shout, O Israel, be glad and rejoice with all the heart, O daughter of Jerusalem. YHWH has removed your judgments, he has cast out your enemy, the King of Israel, even YHWH is in the center of you, you will not see badness anymore. In that day it will be said to Jerusalem, fear not, and to Zion, let not your hands be slack. YHWH alone in the midst of you is mighty, he will save, he will rejoice over you with joy, he will rest in his love, he will joy over you with singing. I will gather them that are afflicted to the appointed place, from you they have been, bearing for her sake reproach. Behold me, dealing with all your oppressors, at that time, and I will save her that is lame, and her that has been will I carry, and I will make them to be a praise and a name, in the whole earth that has witnessed their shame. At that time I will bring you again, even in the time that I regather you, because I will make you a name and a praise among all people of the earth, when I turn back your captivity before your eyes, declares YHWH. In the 2nd year of Darius the king, in the 6th month, in the 1st day of the month, came the word of YHWH by Haggai the prophet to Zerubbabel the son of Shealtiel, governor of Judah, and to Joshua the son of Josedek, the high priest, saying, Then YHWH of hosts declared, saying, This people say, the time has not come, the time that YHWH's temple should be rebuilt. Then came the word of YHWH by Haggai the prophet, saying, Is it time for you, O you, to live in your wainscoted houses, and this temple lies waste? Now therefore YHWH of hosts declares, Consider your ways, you have sown much and bring in little, you eat, but you have not enough, you drink, but you are not filled with drink, you clothe yourself, but there is none warmed, and he that earns wages to put it into a bag with holes. This is what YHWH of hosts declares, Consider your ways, go up to the mountain and gather timber, and rebuild the temple, and I will take pleasure in it and I will be glorified, declares YHWH. You looked for much, and lo, it came to little, and when you brought it home, I did blow upon it. Why? Says YHWH of hosts. Because of my temple that is waste, and you run everyone to his own house. Therefore the skies over you are restrained from dew, and the land is restrained from her produce. Then I called for a drought on the land and on the mountains, and on the corn and on the new wine, oil, and on what the ground produces, and on men and cattle, and on all the labor of the hands. Then Zerubbabel the son of Shealtiel, and Joshua the son of Josedek, the high priest, with all the remnant of the people obeyed the voice of YHWH their Elohim, and the words of Haggai the prophet, as YHWH Elohim had sent him, and the people did fear before YHWH. Then spoke Haggai, YHWH's messenger, and YHWH's message to the people, saying, I am with you, declares YHWH. And YHWH stirred up the spirit of Zerubbabel the son of Shealtiel, governor of Judah, and the spirit of Joshua the son of Josedek, the high priest, and the spirit of all the remnant of the people. And they came and did work in the temple of YHWH of hosts, their Elohim. On the 24th day of the 6th month, in the 2nd year of Darius the king. In the 7th month, in the 21st day of the month, came the word of YHWH by the prophet Haggai, saying, Speak now to Zerubbabel the son of Shealtiel, governor of Judah, and to Joshua the son of Josedek, the high priest, and to the residue of the people, saying, Who is left among you that saw this temple in her first glory? And how do you see it now? Is it not in your eyes in comparison of it as nothing? Yet now be strong, O Zerubbabel, says YHWH, and be strong, O Joshua, son of Josedek, the high priest, and be strong all you people of the land, declares YHWH, and work, because I am with you declares YHWH of hosts, according to the word that I cut out with you when you came out of Egypt, so my spirit remains among you, fear not. Because this is what YHWH of hosts declares, still once, it is a little while, and I will shake the cosmos and the earth and the sea and the dry land. And I will shake all nations, and the desire of all nations will come, and I will fill this temple with glory declares YHWH of hosts. The silver is mine and the gold is mine, declares YHWH of hosts. The glory of this latter temple will be greater than of the former declares YHWH of hosts, and in this standing place I'll bestow peace declares YHWH of hosts. In the 24th day of the 9th month, in the 2nd year of Darius, came the word of YHWH by Haggai the prophet saying, This is what YHWH of hosts declares, Inquire, by Urim-Thummim, now of the high priest concerning the law saying, If one carries consecrated flesh in the skirt of his garment, and with his skirt does touch bread, or pottage, or wine, or oil, or any meat, will it become holy? And the high priest answered and said, No. Then Haggai said, If one that is unclean by a dead body touch any of these, will it be unclean? And the high priest answered and said, It will be unclean. Then answered Haggai and said, So is this people and so is this nation before me, declares YHWH, and so is every work of their hands, and what they offer there is unclean. And now I ask you, consider from this day forward, from before a stone was laid upon a stone in the temple of YHWH, since those days were, when one came to a heap of 20 measures, there were but 10. When one came to the wine vat for to draw out 50 vessels out from the press, there were but 20. I struck you with blasting and with mildew and with hail in all the labors of your hands, still you turn not to me declares YHWH. Consider now from this day forward, from the 24th day of the 9th month, even from the day that the foundation of YHWH's temple was laid, consider. Is the seed still in the barn? And hitherto the vine and the fig, and the pomegranate, and the olive tree, have not borne, from this day I bless. And again the word of YHWH came to Haggai in the 24th day of the month saying, Speak to Zerubbabel, governor of Judah saying, I will shake the cosmos and the earth, and I will overthrow the throne of kingdoms, and I will destroy the strength of the kingdoms of the heathen, and I will overthrow the chariots and those that ride in them, and the horses and their riders will come down, every one by the sword of his brother. In that day declares YHWH of hosts, I will take you O Zerubbabel, my slave, the son of Shealtiel, says YHWH, and will make you as a signet, because I have chosen you declares YHWH of hosts. In the 8th month, in the 2nd year of Darius, came the word of YHWH to Zechariah, the son of Berechiah, the son of Iddo the prophet saying, YHWH has been sore displeased with your forefathers. Therefore tell them, this is what YHWH of hosts declares, Turn to me, declares YHWH of hosts and I will turn to you, declares YHWH of hosts. Do not be as your forefathers, to whom the former prophets have cried saying, This is what YHWH of hosts declares, Turn now from your bad ways and from your unkind practices, but they did not hear or listen to me says YHWH. Your forefathers, where are they? And the prophets, do they live for the ages? But my words and my statutes that I commanded my slaves the prophets, did they not overtake your forefathers? And they returned and said, Like as YHWH of hosts thought to do to us, according to our ways, and according to our practices, so has he dealt with us. On the 24th day of the 11th month that is the month Sabat, in the 2nd year of Darius, came the word of YHWH to Zechariah, the son of Berechiah, the son of Iddo the prophet saying, I saw by night and behold a man riding on a red horse, and he stood among the myrtle trees that were in the bottom, and behind him there were red horses, speckled, and white. Then I asked, O YHWH, what are these? And the angel that talked with me replied to me, I will show you what these are. And the man that stood among the myrtle trees answered and said, These are they who YHWH has sent to walk to and fro through the earth. And they answered the angel of YHWH that stood among the myrtle trees, and said, We have walked to and fro through the earth, and note, all the earth sits still and is at rest. Then the angel of YHWH answered and said, O YHWH of hosts, how long will you not have mercy on Jerusalem and on the cities of Judah, against which you have had indignation these 70 years? And YHWH answered the angel that talked with me with good words and compassionate words. So the angel that communed with me said to me, Cry saying, This is what YHWH of hosts declares, I am jealous for Jerusalem and for Zion with a great zeal. And I am very angry with the heathen that are at ease, because I was but a little displeased, and they supported the affliction. Therefore this is what YHWH declares, I am returned to Jerusalem with mercies, my temple will be rebuilt in it, declares YHWH of hosts, and a measuring line will be stretched out on Jerusalem. Further, proclaim you, saying, Thus, says YHWH of hosts, yet, shall my cities overflow with blessing. So will YHWH yet, have compassion, upon Zion, and yet make choice of Jerusalem. Then I lifted up my eyes, and looked, and saw 4 horns. And I said to the angel that talked with me, What are these? And he answered me, These are the horns that have scattered Judah, Israel, and Jerusalem. And YHWH showed me 4 engravers. Then I said, What do these come to do? And he spoke saying, These are the horns that have scattered Judah, so that no man did lift up his head, but these are come to terrify them, to cast out the horns of the Gentiles that lifted up their horn over the land of Judah to scatter it. I lifted up my eyes again and looked, and saw a man with a measuring line in his hand. Then I asked, Where are you going? And he replied to me, To measure Jerusalem, to see what is the width and what is the length of it. And look, the angel that talked with me went out, and another angel went out to meet him and said to him, Run, speak to this young man saying, Jerusalem will be inhabited as towns without walls for the increase of men and cattle in it, because I, declare YHWH, will be to her a wall of supernatural fire surrounding it, and will be the glory in the midst of her. Come out, and flee from the land of the north, declares YHWH, because I have spread you abroad as the 4 winds of the sky, declares YHWH. Deliver yourself, O Zion, that live with the daughter of Babylon. Because this is what YHWH of hosts declares, after the glorious Christ has he sent me, his angel, to the nations that plundered you, for he that touches you touches the apple of his eye. Because note, I will shake my hand on them and they will be plundered to their slaves, and you will know that YHWH of hosts has sent me. Sing and rejoice, O daughter of Zion, for lo, I come and I will live in the midst of you, declares YHWH. And many nations will be joined to YHWH in that day, and will be my people, and I will live in the midst of you, and you will know that YHWH of hosts has sent me to you. And YHWH will inherit Judah his portion in the Holy Land, and will choose Jerusalem again. Be silent, O all flesh, before YHWH, because he is raised up out of his sacred habitation. And he showed me Joshua the high priest standing before the angel of YHWH, and Satan standing at his right hand to resist him. And YHWH said to Satan, YHWH rebuke you, O Satan, even YHWH that has chosen Jerusalem rebuke you, is not this a brand plucked out of the fire? Now Joshua was clothed with filthy garments and stood before the angel. And he answered and spoke to those that stood before him, saying, Take away the filthy garments from him. And to him he said, Look, I have caused your depravity to pass from you, and I will clothe you with a robe of state. And I said, Let them set a clean turban on his head. So they set a clean turban on his head, and clothed him with garments. And the angel of YHWH stood by. Then the angel of YHWH admonished Joshua, saying, This is what YHWH of hosts declares, If you will walk in my ways, and if you will observe my charge, then you will also govern my house, and will also guard my courts, and I will give you places to walk among these that stand by. Hear, I pray you, Joshua, the high priest, you and your companions sitting before you, for men of type they are, for lo, I am bringing in my slave the branch. For observe the Urim-Thummim stone that I have put before Joshua. Upon this one, Urim-Thummim stone will be engraved, 7 eyes, behold, I will engrave the engraving of it, declares YHWH of hosts, and I will remove the depravity of that land in one day. In that day, declares YHWH of hosts, you will call every man his neighbor under the vine and under the fig tree. Then the angel that talked with me came again and woke me, as a man that is wakened out of his sleep, and said to me, What do you see? And I replied, I have looked, and see a candlestick all of gold, with a bowl on the top of it, and its 7 lamps thereon, and 7 pipes to the 7 lamps that are on the top of it. And 2 olive trees by it, one on the right side of the bowl, and the other on the left side of it. So I answered and spoke to the angel that talked with me, saying, What are these, my master? Then the angel that talked with me answered and said to me, Do you not know what these are? And I replied, No, my master. Then he answered and spoke to me, saying, This is the word of YHWH to Zerubbabel, saying, Not by might, nor by power, but by my spirit, declares YHWH of hosts. Who are you, O great mountain? Before Zerubbabel you will become the level place, and he will bring out the Urim-Thummim stone with clamoring, shouting, Grace, grace unto it. Moreover the word of YHWH came to me, saying, The hands of Zerubbabel have laid the foundation of this temple, his hands will also finish it, and you will know that YHWH of hosts has sent me to you. Because who has despised the day of small things? Because they will rejoice, and will see the Urim-Thummim stone in the hand of Zerubbabel with those 7 eyes, they are the eyes of YHWH that run to and fro throughout the whole earth. Then I answered and said to him, What are these 2 olive trees on the right side of the candlestick and on the left side of it? And I answered again, and said to him, What are these 2 olive branches that through the 2 golden pipes empty the golden oil out of themselves? And he answered me and said, Do not you know what these are? And I said, No, my master. Then he replied, These are the 2 anointed ones, that stand by the master of the whole earth. Then I turned, and lifted up my eyes and looked and saw a flying roll. And he said to me, What do you see? And I answered, I see a flying roll. The length of it is 20 cubits, 30 feet, and the width is 10 cubits, 15 feet. Then he said to me, This is the curse that goes out over the face of the whole earth. Because everyone that steals will be cut off as on this side according to it, and everyone that swears will be cut off as on that side according to it. I will bring it out, declares YHWH of hosts, and it will enter into the house of the thief, and into the house of him that swears falsely by my name. And it will remain in the middle of his house, and will consume it with its timber and its stones. Then the angel that talked with me went out and said to me, Lift up now your eyes and see what this that goes out is. And I said, What is it? And he replied, This is an ephah that goes out. He also said, This is their resemblance throughout all the earth. And see, there was lifted up a talent of lead, and this is a woman that sits in the middle of the ephah. And he said, This is wickedness. And he cast it into the middle of the ephah, and he cast the weight of lead upon its mouth. Then I lifted up my eyes and looked, and observed, there came out 2 women, and the wind was in their wings, because they had wings like the wings of a stork, and they lifted up the ephah between the earth and the cosmos. Then I said to the angel that talked with me, Where will these bear the ephah? And he replied to me, To build it a house in the land of Shinar, and it will be established, and set there on her own base. And I turned, and lifted up my eyes and looked, and lo, there came 4 chariots out from between 2 mountains, and the mountains were mountains of bronze. In the first chariot were red horses, and in the second chariot black horses, and in the third chariot white horses, and in the fourth chariot spotted and bay horses. Then I answered and said to the angel that talked with me, What are these, my master? And the angel answered and said to me, These are the 4 spirits of the cosmos that go out from standing before the master of all the earth. The black horses that are there go out into the north country, and the white go out after them, and the spotted go out to the south country. And the bay went out and sought to go that they might walk to and fro through the earth, and he said, Go, walk to and fro through the earth. So they walked to and fro through the earth. Then he cried upon me and spoke to me saying, See, these that go toward the north country have alighted my spirit in the north country. And the word of YHWH came to me saying, Take of them from the captivity, even of Heldai, of Tobijah, and of Jedaiah that are come from Babylon, and come this same day, and go into the house of Josiah the son of Zephaniah, then take silver and gold, and fashion crowns, and set them on the head of Joshua the son of Josedek, the high priest, and speak to him saying, This is what YHWH of hosts speaks, saying, Behold the man whose name is the branch, and he will grow up out of his place, and he will rebuild the temple of YHWH, even he will rebuild the temple of YHWH, and he will bear the glory, and shall sit and rule upon his throne. And he shall become a priest on his throne, and the council of peace will be between them both. And the crowns, plural, will be to Helam, and to Tobijah, and to Jedaiah, and to Hen the son of Zephaniah, for a memorial in the temple of YHWH. And they that are far off will come and rebuild in the temple of YHWH, and you will know that YHWH of hosts has sent me to you. And this will come to pass, if you will diligently obey the voice of YHWH alone. And it came about in the 4th year of King Darius that the word of YHWH came to Zechariah on the 4th day of the 9th month, even in Chisleu, when they had sent to the temple of Elohim Sherezer and Regemelech, and their men to pray before YHWH, and to speak to the priests that were in the temple of YHWH of hosts, and to the prophets saying, Should I weep in the 5th month, separating myself, as I have done these so many years? Then came the word of YHWH of hosts to me saying, Speak to all the people of the land and to the priests saying, When you fasted and mourned in the 5th and 7th month, even those 70 years, did you at all fast to me, even to me? And when you did eat, and when you did drink, did not you eat for yourselves, and drink for yourselves? Should you not hear the words that YHWH has cried by the former prophets, when Jerusalem was inhabited and prosperity, and the cities surrounding her, when men inhabited the south and the plain? Then the word of YHWH came to Zechariah saying, This is what YHWH of hosts speaks, saying, Execute true judgment, and show mercy and compassion everyone to his brother, and oppress not the widow, nor the fatherless, foreigner, nor the poor, and let none of you imagine bad against his brother in your heart. But they refused to listen and pulled away the shoulder and stopped their ears so that they should not hear. Yes, they made their hearts as a flint stone, unless they should hear the law, and the words that YHWH of hosts has sent in his spirit by the former prophets, therefore there came a great anger from YHWH of hosts. Therefore it has come to pass that as he cried, and they would not hear, so they cried and I would not hear, declares YHWH of hosts, but I scattered them with a whirlwind among all the nations who they knew not. Then the land was desolate after them so that none passed through nor returned, because they laid the precious land desolate. Again the word of YHWH of hosts came to me saying, This is what YHWH of hosts declares, I was jealous for Zion with great jealousy, and I was jealous for her with great fury. This is what YHWH declares, I am returned to Zion and will live in the center of Jerusalem, and Jerusalem will be called a city of truth, and the mountain of YHWH of hosts the holy mountain. This is what YHWH of hosts declares, there will yet old men and old women live in the streets of Jerusalem, and everyone with his staff in his hand for great age. And the streets of the city will be full of boys and girls playing in the streets of it. This is what YHWH of hosts declares, if it is marvelous in the eyes of the remnant of this people in these days, should it also be marvelous in my eyes? Declares YHWH of hosts. This is what YHWH of hosts declares, Look, I will save my people from the east country, and from the west country, and I will gather them, and they will live in the center of Jerusalem, and they will be my people, and I will be their Elohim, in truth and in righteousness. This is what YHWH of hosts declares, Let your hands be strong, you that hear in these days these words by the mouth of the prophets that were in the day that the foundation of the temple of YHWH of hosts was laid, that the temple might be rebuilt. Because before these days there was no hire for man, nor any hire for animal, neither was there any peace to him that went out or came in because of the adversary, because I set all men every one against his neighbor. But now I will not be to the residue of this people as in the former days declares YHWH of hosts. Because the seed will be prosperous, the vine will give its fruit, and the ground will give its increase, and the skies will give their due, and I will cause the remnant of this people to possess all these things. And it will come to pass that as you were a curse among the heathen, O house of Judah and house of Israel, so will I save you and you will be a blessing, fear not but let your hands be strong. Because this is what YHWH of hosts declares, as I thought to punish you, when your ancestors provoked me to anger, declares YHWH of hosts and I regretted it not. So again have I thought in these days to do well to Jerusalem and to the house of Judah, fear you not. These are the things that you will do, speak every man the truth to his neighbor, execute the judgment of truth and peace in your gates. And let none of you imagine bad in your hearts against his neighbor, and love no false oath, for all these are things that I hate says YHWH. Then the word of YHWH of hosts came to me saying, This is what YHWH of hosts declares, the fast of the 4th month, and the fast of the 5th, and the fast of the 7th, and the fast of the 10th, will be to the house of Judah joy and gladness, and cheerful sacred seasons, therefore love truth and peace. This is what YHWH of hosts declares, it will yet come to pass, that there will come people and the inhabitants of many cities, and the inhabitants of one city will go to another saying, Let us go speedily to pray before YHWH, and to seek YHWH of hosts, I will go also. Yes, many people and strong nations will come to seek YHWH of hosts in Jerusalem, and to pray before YHWH. This is what YHWH of hosts declares, in those days it will come to pass that 10 men will take hold out of all languages of the nations, even will take hold of the skirt of him, that is a Jew saying, We will go with you because we have heard that Elohim is with you. The burden of the word of YHWH against the land of Hadroch, and Damascus, his place of rest, when to YHWH is the eye of man, and of all the tribes of Israel. And also Hamath does border thereon, Tyre and Zidon, for, very wise. And Tyrus did build herself a stronghold, and heaped up silver as the dust and fine gold as the mire of the streets. Look, YHWH will cast her out, and he will attack her power in the sea, and she will be devoured with fire. Ashkelon will see it in fear, Gaza, also, which shall writhe in great anguish, and Ekron, because her expectation will be withered, and the king will perish from Gaza, and Ashkelon will not be inhabited. And a bastard will live in Ashdod, and I will cut off the pride of the Philistines. And I will take away his blood out of his mouth and his abominations from between his teeth, but he that remains, even he, will be for our Elohim, and he will be as a governor in Judah, and Ekron as a Jebusite. And I will encamp around my temple because of the army, because of him that passes by, and because of him that returns, and no oppressor will pass through them any more, because now have I seen with my eyes. Rejoice greatly, O daughter of Zion, shout, O daughter of Jerusalem, look, your king comes to you, he is righteous and having salvation, lowly and riding upon a donkey, and upon a he donkey, the foal of a she donkey. And I will cut off the chariot from Ephraim and the horse from Jerusalem, and the battle bow will be cut off, and he will speak peace to the heathen. And his dominion will be from sea even to sea, and from the river even to the ends of the earth. As for you also, by the blood of your covenant I have sent out your prisoners out of the pit where no water is. Turn to the stronghold, you prisoners of hope. Even today do I declare that I will render double to you, when I have bent Judah for me, filled the bow with Ephraim, and raised up your sons O Zion, against your sons O Greece, and made you as the sword of a mighty man. And YHWH will be seen over them, and his arrow will go out as the lightning, and Adonai YHWH will blow the ram's horn and will go with whirlwinds of the south. YHWH of hosts will defend them, and they will devour and subdue with sling stones, and they will drink and make a noise as through wine, and they will be filled like bowls, and as the corners of the altar. And YHWH there alone will save them in that day as the flock of his people, because they will be as the stones of a crown, lifted up as an ensign upon his land. For how great is his goodness, and how great is his beauty! Corn will make the young men cheerful, and new wine the virgin. Ask of YHWH rain in the time of the latter rain, so YHWH will make bright clouds, and give them showers of rain, to everyone grass in the field. Because the idols have spoken vanity and the diviners have seen a lie, and have told false dreams, they comfort in vain, therefore they went their way as a flock and they were troubled, because there was no shepherd. My nostrils flared against the shepherds and I punished the goats, because YHWH of hosts has visited his flock the house of Judah, and has made them as his goodly horse in the battle. From him is a cornerstone, Urim Thummim, from him a nail, tent peg, from him a battle bow, from him goes out every oppressor together. And they will be as mighty men that tread down their enemies in the mire of the streets in the battle, and they will fight, because YHWH is with them, and the riders on horses will be confounded. And I will strengthen the house of Judah, and I will save the house of Joseph, and I will bring them again to place them. Because I will have mercy upon them, and they will be as though I had not cast them off, because I am YHWH there alone, and will hear them. And they of Ephraim will be like a mighty man, and their heart will rejoice as through wine, yes, their children will see it and be glad. Their heart will rejoice in YHWH. I will whistle for them and gather them, because I have ransomed them, and they will increase as they have increased. And I will sow them among the people, and they will remember me in far countries, and they will live with their children and return. I will bring them again also out of the land of Egypt, and gather them out of Assyria, and I will bring them into the land of Gilead and Lebanon, and there is not found for them space. And he will pass through the sea with affliction, and will strike the waves in the sea, and all the depths of the river will dry up. And the pride of Assyria will be brought down, and the scepter of Egypt will depart away. And I will strengthen them in YHWH, and they will walk up and down in his name, declares YHWH. Open your doors, O Lebanon, that the fire may devour your cedars. Howl, fir tree, because the cedar is fallen, because the mighty are plundered. Howl, O you oaks of Bashan, because the forest of the vintage has been brought down. There is a voice of the howling of the shepherds, because their glory is spoiled, a voice of the roaring of young lions, because the pride of Jordan is spoiled. This is what YHWH alone declares: feed the flock of the slaughter, whose possessors kill them and hold themselves not guilty, and they that sell them say, blessed is YHWH, because I am rich, and their own shepherds pity them not. Because I will no more pity the inhabitants of the land, declares YHWH, but lo, I will deliver the people everyone into his neighbor's hand, and into the hand of his king, and they will attack the land, and out of their hand I will not deliver them. And I will feed the flock of slaughter, even you, O poor of the flock. And I took to myself 2 staffs, the one I called Beauty, and the other I called Bands, and I fed the flock. 3 shepherds also I cut off in 1 month, and I vexed them, and their lives also abhorred me. And I say, I do not feed you, the dying, let die, and the cut off, let be cut off, and the remaining ones, let each eat the flesh of its neighbor. And I took my staff, even Beauty, and cut it asunder, that I might break my covenant that I had made with all the people. And it was broken in that day, and so the poor of the flock that waited on me knew that it was the word of YHWH. And I said to them, if you think good, give me my price, and if not, forbear. So they weighed for my price 30 pieces of silver. And YHWH said to me, cast it to the potter, the goodly price that I have been prized at by them, and I take the 30 pieces of silver and cast them to the temple of YHWH, unto the potter. Then I cut asunder my other staff, even Bands, that I might break the brotherhood between Judah and Israel. And YHWH said to me, take to yourself yet the instruments of a foolish shepherd. For lo, I will raise up a ruler in the land that will not visit those that are cut off, neither will seek the young one, nor heal what is broken, nor feed what stands still. But he will eat the flesh of the fat, and tear their claws in pieces. Woe to the worthless shepherd that leaves the flock. The sword will be upon his arm, and upon his right eye, his arm will be clean dried up, and his right eye will be utterly darkened. The burden of the word of YHWH for Israel, declares YHWH that stretches out the cosmos, and lays the foundation of the earth, and frames the breath of man within him. Watch, I will make Jerusalem a cup of reeling to all the people around it, when they will be in the siege both against Judah and against Jerusalem. And in that day will I make Jerusalem a burdensome stone, Urim Thummim, for all people, all that burden themselves with it will be cut in pieces, though all the people of the earth be gathered together against it. In that day declares YHWH, I will strike every horse with astonishment, and his rider with madness, and I will open my eyes on the house of Judah, and will strike every chariot horse of the people with blindness. And the governor of Judah will say in his heart, the inhabitants of Jerusalem will be my strength in YHWH of hosts their Elohim. In that day I will make the governors of Judah like an cauldron of supernatural fire among the timbers, and like a torch of fire in a sheaf. And they will devour all the surrounding people, on the right hand and on the left, and Jerusalem will be inhabited again in her own place, even in Jerusalem. YHWH also will save the tents of Judah first, that the glory of the house of David and the glory of the inhabitants of Jerusalem do not magnify themselves against Judah. In that day will YHWH defend the inhabitants of Jerusalem, and he that is feeble among them at that day will be as David, and the house of David will be as Elohim, as the angel of YHWH before them. And it will come to pass in that day that I will seek to destroy all the nations that come against Jerusalem. And I will pour on the house of David, and on the inhabitants of Jerusalem, the spirit of grace and of supplications. And they will look upon me whom they have pierced, and they will mourn for him, as one mourns for his only son, and will be in bitterness for him, as one that is in bitterness for his firstborn. In that day will there be a great mourning in Jerusalem, as the mourning of Hadadrimmon in the valley of Megiddon. And the land will mourn, every family apart, the family of the house of David apart and their women apart, the family of the house of Nathan apart and their women apart, the family of the house of Levi apart and their women apart, the family of Shimei apart and their women apart, all the families that remain, every family apart and their women apart. On that day there will be a fountain open to the house of David and to the inhabitants of Jerusalem for sin and for uncleanness. And it will come to pass in that day, declares YHWH of hosts, that I will cut off the names of the idols out of the land, and they will no more be remembered. And also I will cause the ministers and the unclean spirit to pass out of the land. And it shall come about that when any will yet prophesy, then his dad and his mother that gendered him will say to him, you will not live, because you speak lies in the name of YHWH. And his dad and his mother that gendered him will thrust him through when he prophesies. And it will come to pass in that day, that the ministers will be ashamed every one of his vision, when he has prophesied, neither will they wear a garment of hair to deceive, but he will say, I am no minister, I am a servant, for man taught me to keep cattle from my youth. And one will say to him, what are these wounds in your hands? Then he will answer, those with which I was wounded in the house of my friends. Awake, O sword, against my ruler, and against the man that is my relation, declares YHWH of hosts, strike the ruler, and the sheep will be scattered, and I have put my back hand upon the little ones. Then it will come to pass that in all the land, declares YHWH, 2/3 part of them will be cut off and die, but 1/3 will be left therein. And I will bring the third part through the fire and will refine them as silver is refined, and will try them as gold is tried, they will call on my name and I will hear them. I will say, it is my people, and they will say, YHWH is my Elohim. Watch, the day of YHWH comes and your plunder will be divided in the midst of you. Because I will gather all nations against Jerusalem to battle, and the city will be taken, and the houses plundered, and the women raped, and half of the city will go out into captivity, but the residue of the people will not be cut off from the city. Then will YHWH go out, and fight against those nations, as when he fought in the day of battle. And his feet will stand in that day on the Mount of Olives that is before Jerusalem on the east, and the Mount of Olives will split in its center toward the east and toward the west. And there will be a very great valley, and half of the mountain will remove toward the north, and half of it toward the south. And you will flee to the valley of the mountains, because the valley of the mountains will reach to Azael. Yes, you will flee like you fled from before the earthquake in the days of Uzziah king of Judah, and YHWH alone will come, and all the saints with you. And it will come to pass in that day, that the light will not be clear, nor dark, but it will be one day that will be known to YHWH, not day, nor night, but it will come to pass, that at evening time it will be light. And it will be in that day that living waters will go out from Jerusalem, half of them toward the former sea, and half of them toward the later sea, in summer and in winter will it be. And YHWH will be king over all the earth, in that day will there be one YHWH, and his name one. All the land will be turned as a plain from Geba to Rimmon south of Jerusalem. And it will be lifted up, and inhabited in her place, from Benjamin's gate to the place of the first gate, to the corner gate, and from the tower of Hananel to the king's winepresses. And people will live in it, and there will be no more utter destruction, but Jerusalem will be safely inhabited. Now this will be the plague with which YHWH will strike all the people that have fought against Jerusalem. Their flesh will consume away while they stand on their feet, and their eyes will consume away in their sockets, and their tongue will consume away in their mouth. And it will come to pass in that day, that a great vexation from YHWH will be among them, and they will lay hold everyone on the hand of his neighbor, and his hand will rise up against the hand of his neighbor. And Judah also will fight at Jerusalem, and the wealth of all the heathen around there will be gathered together, gold and silver and apparel in great abundance. And so will be the plague of the horse, of the mule, of the camel, and of the donkey, and of all the beasts that will be in these tents, as this plague. And it will come about that everyone that is left of all the nations that came against Jerusalem will even go up from year to year to worship the King, YHWH of hosts, and to observe the Feast of Tabernacles. And it will be that whoever will not come up of all the families of the earth to Jerusalem to worship the King, YHWH of hosts, even upon them will be no rain. And if the family of Egypt goes not up, and comes not, that have no rain, there will be the plague wherewith YHWH will strike the heathen that come not up to observe the Feast of Tabernacles. This will be the punishment of Egypt and the punishment of all nations that come not up to observe the Feast of Tabernacles. In that day there will be upon the bells of the horses, holiness to YHWH, and the pots in YHWH's temple will be like the basin before the altar. Yes, every pot in Jerusalem and in Judah will be holiness to YHWH of hosts, and all they that sacrifice will come and take from them and boils in it, and in that day there will be no more the Canaanite in the house of YHWH, of hosts. The burden of the word of YHWH to Israel by Malachi, my messenger. I have loved you, declares YHWH. Still you say, how have you loved us? Was not Esau Jacob's brother? Says YHWH, still I loved Jacob, and I hated Esau, and laid his mountains and his heritage waste for the jackals of the wilderness. Whereas Edom says, we are shattered but we will return and rebuild the ruins. This is what YHWH of hosts declares, they will rebuild, but I will throw down. And they will call them the border of wickedness, and the people against whom YHWH has indignation for the ages. And your eyes will see and you will say, YHWH will be magnified from the territory of Israel. A son honors his dad and a slave his master. If I then am a dad, where is my honor? And if I am a master, where is my fear? Declares YHWH of hosts to you, O ministers that despise my name. And you ask, how have we despised your name? You offer desecrated food on my altar. And you ask, how have we desecrated you? In that you say, the table of YHWH is despised. And if you bring the blind for sacrifice, is it not bad? And if you bring the lame and sick, is it not bad? Bring it now to your governor, will he be pleased with you or accept your person? Declares YHWH of hosts. And now I ask you, beseech Elohim that he will be gracious to us, this has been by your hand, will he regard your face? Declares YHWH of hosts. Who is there even among you that would shut the doors for nothing? Neither do you kindle fire on my altar for nothing. I have no pleasure in you, declares YHWH of hosts, neither will I accept an offering from your hand. Because from the rising of the sun even to the going down of the same my name will be great among the Gentiles. And in every place incense will be offered to my name, and a pure offering, because my name will be great among the heathen, declares YHWH of hosts. But you have desecrated it, in that you say, the table of YHWH is polluted, and its fruit, even his meat, are despised. You also said, look, what a hardship is it. And you have snuffed at it, declares YHWH of hosts, and you brought what was torn, and the lame, and the sick, this you brought for an offering. Should I accept this from your hand, asks YHWH? But cursed is the deceiver that has in his flock a male, and makes a vow and sacrifices to YHWH a corrupt thing, because I am a great king, declares YHWH of hosts, and my name is dreadful among the heathen. And now, O you ministers, this commandment is for you. If you will not hear and if you will not lay it to heart, to give glory to my name, declares YHWH of hosts, I will even send a curse on you, and I will curse your blessings. Yes, I have cursed them already because you do not lay it to heart. Behold me threatening, on your account, the descendants, and I will scatter feces upon your faces, the feces of your festival gatherings, and one shall carry you away unto it. Then you will know that I have sent this commandment to you, that my covenant, of life and peace, might be with Levi, declares YHWH of hosts. My covenant was with him of life and peace, and I gave them to him for the fear in which he feared me, and was afraid before my name. The law of truth was in his mouth, and injustice was not found in his lips. He walked with me in a peaceful and level place, and did turn many away from depravity. Because the Levitical priest's lips should guard the discernment, and they should seek the Torah from his mouth, because he is the messenger of Yhwh of hosts. But you are departed out of the way, you have caused many to stumble at the Torah, you have corrupted the covenant of Levi, declares Yhwh of hosts. Therefore I have also made you hated and base before all the people, according as you have not observed my ways, but have been partial in the Torah. Have we not all one Father? Has not one Elohim created us? Why do we deal treacherously every one against his brother, by desecrating the covenant of our ancestors? Judah has dealt treacherously, and an abomination is committed in Israel and in Jerusalem, because Judah has desecrated the holiness of Yhwh that he loved, and has married the daughter of a foreign Elohim. Yhwh will cut off the man that does this, the master and the scholar, out of the tabernacles of Jacob, and him that offers an offering to Yhwh of hosts. And this have you done again, covering the altar of Yhwh with tears, with weeping, and with crying out, in that he regarded not the offering any more, or received it with goodwill from your hand. Still you ask, why? Because Yhwh has been witness between you and the woman of your youth, against whom you have dealt treacherously, yet is she your companion and the woman of your covenant. And he did not make one only, and he has the remnant of the Spirit. And what is the one alone? He is seeking a divine seed. And you have been watchful over your spirit, and with the woman of your youth, none do deal treacherously. Because Yhwh, the Elohim of Israel, declares that he hates divorce, because one covers violence with his garment, declares Yhwh of hosts, therefore take heed to your spirit so that you deal not treacherously. You have wearied Yhwh with your words. Still you say, how have we wearied him? When you say, everyone that does bad is good in the sight of Yhwh, and he delights in them, or where is the Elohim of judgment? Watch, I will send my messenger, and he will prepare the way before me, and Adonai, whom you seek, will suddenly light upon his temple, even the angel of the covenant, whom you delight in. See, he will come, declares Yhwh of hosts. But who may endure the day of his coming? And who will stand when he watches? Because he is like a refiner's fire, and like fuller's soap, and he will sit as a refiner and purifier of silver, and he will purify the sons of Levi, and purge them as gold and silver, so that they may approach Yhwh with an offering in righteousness. Then will the offering of Judah and Jerusalem be pleasant to Yhwh, as in the days of old, and as in former years. And I will approach to you in judgment, and I will be a swift witness against the sorcerers, adulterers, false swearers, and against those that oppress the hired laborer in his wages, the widow, fatherless, and that turn aside the foreigner and fear not me, declares Yhwh of hosts. Because I am Yhwh, I change not, therefore you sons of Jacob are not consumed. Even from the days of your ancestors you are gone away from my ordinances, and have not observed them. Return to me and I will return to you, declares Yhwh of hosts. But you ask, how will we return? Will a man rob Elohim? Yet you have robbed me. But you ask, how have we robbed you? In tithes and offerings. You are cursed with a curse, because you have robbed me, even this whole nation. Bring you all the tithes into the storehouse, so that there may be food in my house. And prove me now herewith, declares Yhwh of hosts, if I will not open you the windows of the cosmos, and pour you out a blessing, that there will not be room enough to receive it. And I will rebuke the destroyer for your sakes, and he will not destroy the fruits of your ground, neither will your vine cast its fruit before the time in the field, declares Yhwh of hosts. And all nations will call you blessed, because you will be a delightful land, declares Yhwh of hosts. Your words have been stout against me, declares Yhwh. Still you say, what have we spoken so much against you? You have said, it is vain to serve Elohim, and what profit is it that we have observed his ordinance, and that we have walked mournfully before Yhwh of hosts? And now we call the proud happy, yes, they that work wickedness are set up, yes, they that test Elohim are even delivered. Then they that feared Yhwh spoke often one to another, and Yhwh listened, and heard it, and a book of memorial was written before him for them that feared Yhwh, and that thought upon his name. And they will be mine, declares Yhwh of hosts, in that day when I ordain my jewels, and I will spare them, as a man spares his own son that serves him. Then will you return and discern between the righteous and the wicked, between him that serves Elohim and him that serves him not. For behold, the day comes, that will burn as an oven, and all the proud, yes, and all that do wickedly, will be stubble, and the day that comes will burn them up, declares Yhwh of hosts, that it will leave them neither root nor branch. But to you that fear my name will the sun rising of righteous acts break forth with healing in his wings, and you will go out and grow up as calves of the stall. And you will tread down the wicked, because they will be ashes under the soles of your feet in the day that I will do this, declares YHWH of hosts. Remember the Torah of Moses my slave that I commanded to him in Horeb for all Israel, with the statutes and judgments. Watch, I will send you Elijah the prophet before the coming of the great and dreadful day of YHWH, and he will turn the understanding of the ancestors to the children, and the heart of the children to their ancestors, unless I come and strike the earth with a curse. The end of the latter prophets.